Episode 1. The cycle begins when partial obedience becomes total chaos. Welcome. Take a deep breath. Let the tensions of the day slip away. Tonight, we begin a new book, the Book of Judges. And I'll be honest with you, this is a harder book than Genesis or Exodus. Darker, more troubling, more human in its failures. But it's also a book about hope, about a God who never gives up on his people, even when they give up on him. About a God who hears the cry of the oppressed, who raises deliverers from unlikely places, who remains faithful even when his people are faithless. We left Exodus with God's glory filling the tabernacle, God dwelling among his people. The covenant was established, the law given. Everything pointed toward a bright future in the promised land. But between Exodus and Judges, something happened. Joshua led Israel into Canaan. They conquered the land, or at least, they partially conquered it. Joshua died. The generation that knew the Lord died. And a new generation arose that did not know the Lord or the works he had done for Israel. Tonight, we're stepping into that world. A world where God's people have grown comfortable with compromise, where they've made peace with the enemy instead of driving them out, where incomplete obedience has planted the seeds of chaos. This is the Book of Judges, and it's going to get dark before it gets light. But even in the darkness, God is present. Even in the cycle of failure, grace is at work. So settle in. Let your body relax. Tonight we watch the cycle begin, and we learn what happens when everyone does what is right in their own eyes. The story, incomplete conquest. After Joshua died, the people of Israel inquired of the Lord, "Who shall go up first for us against the Canaanites, to fight against them?" The Lord said, "Judah shall go up. Behold, I have given the land into his hand." So Judah went up, and God continued to give them victories. They defeated 10,000 Canaanites and Perizzites at Bezek. They captured their king, Adonibezek, and cut off his thumbs and big toes, the same mutilation he had inflicted on 70 other kings. And Adonibezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and their big toes cut off used to pick up scraps under my table. As I have done, so God has repaid me." Even a pagan king recognized divine justice. What you sow, you reap. How you treat others, you will be treated. Judah continued their campaign. They took Jerusalem and set it on fire. They fought against the Canaanites in the hill country, in the Negeb, in the lowland. They had success after success. Caleb, the old warrior who, 4 to 5 years earlier, had said, "Give me this mountain," offered his daughter Achsah in marriage to whoever would capture Kiriath Sefer. His nephew Othniel took the city and won the bride. When Achsah came to Othniel, she urged him to ask her father for a field. Then she dismounted from her donkey, and Caleb said, "What do you want?" She said, "Give me a blessing. Since you have given me the land of the Negeb, give me also springs of water." Bold, direct, asking for more from a generous father. And Caleb gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. A picture of faith, asking God for blessings, for resources, for what we need. Not settling for less than what he's willing to give. But then, the victory started to become incomplete. The refrain of compromise. Judah could not drive out the inhabitants of the plain because they had chariots of iron. Think about that. God had parted the Red Sea. God had brought down the walls of Jericho. God had stopped the sun in the sky for Joshua. But now, iron chariots were too much. It wasn't that God couldn't defeat iron chariots. It was that Judah's faith faltered when the enemy looked too strong. And then came the refrain. Over and over, like a drumbeat of failure. Manasseh did not drive out the inhabitants of Bethshean and its villages, or of Tanakh and its villages. Ephraim did not drive out the Canaanites who lived in Gezer. Zebulun did not drive out the inhabitants of Kitron, or the inhabitants of Naalol. Asher did not drive out the inhabitants of Akko, or the inhabitants of Sidon. Naphtali did not drive out the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh, or the inhabitants of Beth Anath. Tribe after tribe, failure after failure, not because they couldn't, but because they wouldn't. Instead of driving out the Canaanites, they made them pay tribute. They forced them into labor. They profited from them. It seemed practical. Why destroy a potential workforce? Why eliminate a source of revenue? Why not just control them and benefit from their presence? But God had commanded total obedience, not partial conquest, not economic exploitation, complete removal of the idolatrous nations, lest their gods become a snare. And the people chose profit over obedience, convenience over holiness, their own wisdom over God's command. The chapter ends with the Amorites pressing the tribe of Dan back into the hill country. Then couldn't even secure the territory God had given them. They were being pushed around by the very people they were supposed to displace. The angel's rebuke. Now the angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochim, and he said, I brought you up from Egypt and brought you into the land that I swore to give to your fathers. I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you shall make no covenant with the inhabitants of this land. You shall break down their altars. But you have not obeyed my voice. What is this you have done? So now I say, I will not drive them out before you, but they shall become thorns in your sides, and their God shall be a snare to you. The angel of the Lord, a manifestation of God himself, confronting his people with their disobedience. Notice the indictment. I brought you up from Egypt. I delivered you. I kept my covenant. I never broke my promise. But you made covenants with the very people I told you to drive out. You left their altars standing. You disobeyed. And now, there would be consequences. The enemies they left in the land would become thorns, constant irritants, sources of pain. And the gods of those enemies would become snares, traps that would catch Israel and pull them away from the true God. As soon as the angel of the Lord spoke these words to all the people of Israel, the people lifted up their voices and wept. And they call the name of that place Bochim, which means weepers. They wept. They offered sacrifices to the Lord. But there's no record of repentance, no record of tearing down the altars, no record of driving out the inhabitants. Just tears, emotion without action, sorrow without change. And that would not be enough to stop what was coming. The pattern established. After Joshua died, and after all that generation who had known the Lord and seen his works had died, there arose another generation who did not know the Lord or the work that he had done for Israel. How does a generation forget God? How do the children of those who saw the Red Sea part, who ate manna in the wilderness, who watched the walls of Jericho fall, how do they grow up not knowing the Lord? Because their parents didn't tell them, because the stories weren't passed down, because faith was assumed, not discipled. And the people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord and served the Baals. They abandoned the Lord, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt. They went after other gods from among the gods of the peoples who were around them and bowed down to them. Spiritual adultery. That's how the Bible describes it. Israel was married to Yahweh. He had chosen them, loved them, redeemed them, provided for them, and they went after other lovers, Baal, Ashtoreth, the gods of the nations. So the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he gave them over to plunderers, who plundered them, and he sold them into the hand of their surrounding enemies, so that they could no longer withstand their enemies. Notice, God didn't send a foreign invasion. He just removed his protection. He stopped fighting for them and let their enemies do what enemies do. And Israel was in great distress. Then the Lord raised up judges, who saved them out of the hand of those who plundered them. Yet they did not listen to their judges, for they whored after other gods and bowed down to them. Even when God sent deliverers, Israel wouldn't fully turn back. They'd get relief, then slide right back into idolatry. Whenever the Lord raised judges for them, the Lord was with the judge, and he saved them from the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For the Lord was moved to pity by their groaning because of those who afflicted and oppressed them. God's compassion, even in judgment, even in discipline, God heard their groaning. Their pain moved him to pity, and he raised up leaders to deliver them. But whenever the judge died, they turned back and were more corrupt than their fathers, going after other gods, serving them and bowing down to them. They did not drop any of their practices or their stubborn ways. More corrupt than before, each generation is worse than the last. The cycle spirals downward. So the Lord said, because this people have transgressed my covenant that I commanded their fathers and have not obeyed my voice, I will no longer drive out before them any of the nations that Joshua left when he died, in order to test Israel by them, whether they will take care to walk in the way of the Lord as their fathers did, or not. The nations Israel failed to drive out would become a test, a constant exam of their loyalty. Would they resist idolatry? Would they stay faithful? Or would they compromise, intermarry, and worship false gods? The answer, sadly, was the latter. The first judges, Israel, did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals and the Asheroth. Therefore the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia. And the people of Israel served him for 8 years. 8 years of oppression, 8 years of suffering, 8 years before they cried out to the Lord. But when the people of Israel cried out to the Lord raised up a deliverer for them, Othniel the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. Othniel, the same man who had captured Kiriath-Sepher and won Achsah as his bride. A proven warrior, a faithful man. The Spirit of the Lord was upon him, and he judged Israel. He went out to war, and the Lord gave Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, into his hand. When the Spirit came upon the judges, they weren't operating in their own strength. They were empowered by God. The victories were God's, not theirs. So the land had rested for 40 years. Then Othniel the son of Kenaz died. 40 years of peace. A generation raised without oppression. But it didn't last. And the people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. And the Lord strengthened Eglon the king of Moab against Israel, because they had done what was evil. The cycle continued. Evil oppression, crying out, deliverance, peace, deeper evil. Eglon gathered the Ammonites and the Amalekites and defeated Israel, taking the city of palms, Jericho, the city that had once fallen by God's power, now occupied by Israel's enemies. And the people of Israel served Eglon the king of Moab 18 years. 18 years this time. The oppression was getting longer. Aid the left-handed deliverer. Then the people of Israel cried out to the Lord, and the Lord raised up for them a deliverer, Aid, the son of Jer, the Benjaminite, a left-handed man. Left-handed, in a world where most people were right-hand, where soldiers would check for weapons on the left side of the body. Being left-handed was a strategic advantage. God uses what the world overlooks. What seems like a weakness becomes a strength in his hands. The people of Israel sent tribute by aid to Eglon the king of Moab. Aid made for himself a sword with 2 edges, a cubit in length, and he bound it on his right thigh under his clothes. A short, double-edged sword, hidden where guards wouldn't look. Aid was preparing for more than a diplomatic visit, and he presented the tribute to the Eglon king of Moab. Now Eglon was a very fat man. The detail matters. Eglon's obesity symbolized his excess, his luxury, his exploitation of Israel. He grew fat while Israel suffered. After Aid presented the tribute, he sent away the people who carried it. But he himself turned back at the idols near Gilgal and said, I have a secret message for you, O king. Curiosity, pride, Eglon wanted to hear what this Israelite had to say in private, and the king said, "Silence," and all his attendants left his presence. Aid came to him as he was sitting alone in his cool roof chamber. And Aid said, "I have a message from God for you." "A message from God?" Truer than Eglon knew, and Eglon rose from his seat. Then Aid reached with his left hand, took the sword from his right thigh, and thrust it into Eglon's belly, and the hilt also went in after the blade, and the fat closed over the blade, for he did not pull the sword out of his belly, and the dung came out. Graphic, grotesque. The Bible doesn't sanitize reality. This was a violent act against a violent oppressor. Aid went out into the porch and closed the doors of the roof chamber behind him and locked them. The servants assumed the king was relieving himself and waited. By the time they realized something was wrong, Aid was long gone. He escaped to Syria. When he arrived, he sounded the trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim. Then the people of Israel went down with him from the hill country, and he was their leader. And he said to them, "Follow after me, for the Lord has given your enemies the Moabites into your hand." They went down after him and seized the fords of the Jordan against the Moabites and did not allow anyone to pass over. And they killed at that time about 10,000 of the Moabites, all strong, able-bodied men. Not a man escaped. Complete victory, decisive defeat of the oppressor. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest for 80 years. 80 years, the longest peace yet. God used an unlikely man with an unconventional method to bring his people freedom. Shamgar. After Aid came Shamgar the son of Anath, who killed 600 of the Philistines with an ox goad, and he also saved Israel. One verse, one man, one tool, an ox goad, a farmer's instrument for prodding cattle. Shamgar didn't have a sword. He didn't have an army. He had what was in his hand, and God used it to save Israel. Sometimes that's all God needs. Not your credentials, not your resources, just your willingness to use what you have. The meaning. So what does this opening section of Judges teach us? What is God showing us through these cycles of failure and deliverance? Partial obedience is disobedience. Israel didn't completely reject God. They just didn't completely obey him. They drove out some Canaanites, but not all. They conquered some cities, but not others. They thought partial obedience was good enough. But partial obedience is still disobedience. When God says drive them out, and you say I'll just make them pay taxes instead, you're not obeying. You're negotiating. You're substituting your wisdom for God's command. And partial obedience plants seeds of future destruction. The Canaanites Israel left in the land became thorns in their sides and snares to their souls, exactly as God warned. What are you partially obeying? What sin are you tolerating instead of eliminating? What compromise have you made that seems practical but violates God's word? Partial obedience will always come back to haunt you. We forget what we don't pass down. How did a generation arise that didn't know the Lord? Their parents failed to tell them. Faith wasn't discipled. Stories weren't shared. The works of God weren't rehearsed. Every generation is one generation away from forgetting God. If we don't intentionally pass down the faith, if we assume our children will just get it, they won't. Tell the stories. Share what God has done. Make sure the next generation knows the Lord and his works. The cycle of sin is real. Sin, oppression, crying out, deliverance, peace, deepest sin. This is the pattern throughout Judges, and it's the pattern in many of our lives. We sin. We suffer consequences. We cry out to God. He delivers us. We experience peace. Then we drift back into sin, often deeper than before. Recognizing the cycle is the first step to breaking it. Ask yourself, where am I in this cycle right now? Am I in rebellion, in suffering, in crying out, in experiencing deliverance, in peace? And more importantly, how do I break the cycle and stay faithful? God is moved by our groaning. Even in judgment, God's compassion shines through. The Lord was moved to pity by their groaning. God doesn't enjoy watching his people suffer. Their pain moves him. Their cries reach his ears. If you're in a season of oppression, whether self-inflicted through sin or imposed by others, know this: God hears your groaning. Your pain moves him to pity, and he raises up deliverers. God uses unlikely people. Othniel was Caleb's younger brother, not the first choice, but faithful. Aid was left-handed, an oddity that became an advantage. Shamgar was a farmer with an ox goad, not a trained warrior. God specializes in using people the world overlooks. People with quirks. People with unconventional tools. People who don't fit the mold. If you feel unqualified, ordinary, overlooked, you're exactly the kind of person God loves to use. Spiritual victory comes through the Spirit. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Othniel. That's the key. When the judges succeeded, it wasn't because of their strength. It was because God's Spirit empowered them. You can't fight spiritual battles in human strength. You need the Spirit. You need God's power, not your own effort. Compromise becomes a test. God left some nations in the land to test Israel. The enemies they failed to drive out became a constant exam of their loyalty. Your compromises will test you. The sin you tolerate will become a recurring temptation. The idols you leave standing will constantly beckon you. God allows these tests not to make you fail, but to see if you will choose him when the choice is hard. Reflection. Take a slow breath. Let these truths settle deep into your heart. Maybe tonight you're recognizing the cycle in your own life. You've been here before, sinned, suffered, cried out, been delivered, and now you're drifting back toward the same sins. Hear this: God sees the pattern and is inviting you to break it, not through more effort, but through deeper surrender, through complete obedience, not partial. What are you partially obeying? What sin have you made peace with? What enemy have you left in the land because driving them out seems too hard, too costly, too inconvenient? God is saying, drive them out. Tear down the altars. Don't make covenants with compromise, because what you tolerate today will oppress you tomorrow. Maybe you're in the groaning phase. You're under oppression, consequences of your own sin or attacks from the enemy, and you're crying out to God, wondering if he is. Hear this: he does. Your groaning moves him to pity. He's not indifferent to your pain. He's not waiting for you to suffer longer before he acts. He's raising up a deliverer. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's a truth from his word. Maybe it's his Spirit working for you right now. But deliverance is coming. Maybe you feel like Aid or Shamgar, left-handed, holding an ox goad, wondering how God could possibly use someone like you. Hear this: God uses what the world overlooks. Your weakness is his opportunity. Your unconventional tools are his strategy. Your ordinariness is his canvas. Stop waiting to be qualified. Stop waiting for better resources. Use what's in your hand. Step out in faith and watch God multiply your small offering into great victory. Maybe you're a parent, a mentor, a leader, and you're realizing you haven't passed down the faith. The next generation doesn't know the Lord or his works because you assume they would just pick it up. Hear this: it's not too late. Start telling the stories. Share what God has done. Make space for spiritual conversations. Disciple intentionally. Every generation is one generation away from forgetting God. Don't let that happen on your watch. The book of Judges is a warning. This is what happens when people do what's right in their own eyes instead of what's right in God's eyes. This is what happens when we compromise, tolerate sin, and fail to pass down the faith. But it's also a book of hope, because even in the cycle, even in the chaos, God remains faithful. He hears, he delivers, he raises up leaders, he moves with compassion. The judges weren't perfect, Othniel, Ade, Shamgar, they were flawed people, but God used them anyway. He empowered them with His Spirit. He gave them victory through His strength, and He'll do the same for you. God hears your groaning. He's moved by your pain, and He's in the business of raising deliverers, even from the most unlikely places. Next, we'll meet Deborah and Barak. We'll watch God raise a prophetess to lead when the men are spiritually slack. We'll see Jael drive a tent peg through an enemy's skull. We'll hear the song of victory that celebrates God's triumph. You are seen, you are heard, and even in your cycle, God is working. Confess where you've partially obeyed. Cry out for deliverance. Trust that God's Spirit is more powerful than your weakness. The cycle can be broken. The enemies can be driven out. The land can have rest. But it starts with complete surrender, total obedience, honest dependence on God's Spirit, not your strength. Episode 2: Deborah and Barak, when God raises a woman to lead. Welcome back. Take a deep breath. Let the peace of this moment settle over you. We're continuing our journey through Judges, the book of cycles, of human failure, and of God's faithful deliverance. Last time, we watched the pattern establish itself. Israel compromised. They left enemies in the land. A generation arose that didn't know the Lord. They fell into idolatry, suffered oppression, cried out to God, and were delivered by judges like Othniel, Ade, and Shamgar. Tonight, we come to one of the most remarkable stories in all of Judges. A story about a prophetess named Deborah. A story about a reluctant general named Barak. A story about a woman named Jael who did what an army of men could not do. This is a story that challenges our assumptions about who God uses and how He works. It's a story of courage and cowardice, of faith and fear, of God choosing the unlikely to accomplish the impossible. And at the end, there's a song, one of the greatest victory songs in all of Scripture. A song that celebrates not human strength but divine intervention. A song that names those who stepped up and those who stayed behind. A song that declares, when God fights, creation itself becomes His army. So settle in. Let your mind be still. Tonight we watch God raise a mother in Israel to lead a nation back to Him. The story: 20 years of cruel oppression. After Ade died, the people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. Again, the cycle continues. The spiral deepened. Peace had lasted 80 years under Ade. But peace didn't produce faithfulness. It produced complacency. And the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth-Goyim. Jabin, a Canaanite king, ruling from Hazor, the same city Joshua had burned to the ground generations earlier. But Israel's incomplete conquest meant the Canaanites had rebuilt, regrouped, and now ruled over Israel. Sisera commanded 900 chariots of iron chariots, the same military technology that had intimidated Israel in chapter 1, the same excuse they'd used for not driving out the inhabitants. Now those iron chariots were being used to oppress them. Then the people of Israel cried out to the Lord for help, for He had 900 chariots of iron, and He oppressed the people of Israel cruelly for 20 years. 20 years. 20 years of brutal oppression. 20 years of suffering under iron wheels and iron chains. 20 years before they cried out. Why did it take so long? Why do we wait so long to turn back to God? We suffer. We endure. We try to fix it ourselves. And only when we're desperate, only when we've exhausted every other option, do we finally cry out to the one who could have helped us all along. Deborah, a mother in Israel. Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time. Deborah, the only female judge in the book of Judges, the only one explicitly called a prophetess, a mouthpiece for God, speaking His words to His people. She used to sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim. And the people of Israel came up to her for judgment. Picture it, a woman sitting under a tree. People coming to her for wisdom, for decisions, for the word of the Lord. In a culture where men typically held all positions of authority, God raised up a woman to lead. Why? Because the men were spiritually slack. Because in Israel's darkest hours, when the men were paralyzed by fear, God found a woman who would speak his word and lead his people. This isn't a statement about gender roles in general. It's a statement about God's sovereignty and human failure. When the expected leaders won't lead, God raises up whoever will. He's not limited by cultural norms or human preferences. She sent and summoned Barak the son of Abinoam from Kadesh Naphtali and said to him, "Has not the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded you, go, gather your men at Mount Tabor, taking 10,000 from the people of Naphtali and the people of Zebulun, and I will draw out Sisera, the general of Jabin's army, to meet you by the river Kishon with his chariots and his troops, and I will give him into your hand." A clear command, a specific strategy, a divine promise. God had spoken, and Deborah was delivering his message to Barak. Go, gather your army, meet the enemy at the river, and I, the Lord, will give you victory. Barak's hesitation. Barak said to her, "If you will go with me, I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go." Barak's response is complicated. Is it faith or fear? Dependence or cowardice? He wants Deborah with him, the prophetess, the woman who hears from God. That shows wisdom, but is also refusing to go without her. That shows hesitation. And she said, "I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the road on which you are going will not lead to your glory, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman." A prophecy, a rebuke wrapped in accommodation. Yes, I'll go with you, but because you hesitated, because you wouldn't go without me, the honor of this victory won't be yours. A woman will get the glory, not you. Barak's faith was real but imperfect. He believed God but wanted visible assurance. He was willing to fight but needed someone beside him. God used him anyway, but adjusted the outcome to reflect his hesitation. Then Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. Barak called out Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh, and 10,000 men went up at his heels, and Deborah went up with him. The army assembled, 10,000 men, Barak leading, Deborah accompanying. The stage was set, the battle at Kishon. When Sisera was told that Barak the son of Abinoam had gone up to Mount Tabor, Sisera called out all his chariots, 900 chariots of iron, and all the men who were with him, from Harosheth-Hagoyim to the river Kishon. 900 iron chariots, the pride of Canaan's military, the terror of Israel, all converging on the river Kishon, a narrow valley where chariots would normally dominate. And Deborah said to Barak, "Up, for this is the day in which the Lord has given Sisera into your hand. Does not the Lord go out before you?" Faith speaking, confidence in God's promise. This is the day. Not tomorrow, not when conditions are better. Today, now, because the Lord has already given you victory. Now go take it. Does not the Lord go out before you? The battle is already won in heaven. Now it just needs to be fought on earth. So Barak went down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him. And the Lord routed Sisera and all his chariots and all his army before Barak by the edge of the sword. The Lord routed them. Not Barak's strategy, not Israel's strength. The Lord. What happened? The next chapter, Deborah's song, gives us a hint. From heaven the stars fought. From their courses they fought against Sisera. The river Kishon swept them away. A storm, heavy rain. The ground turned to mud. The river is flooding. The iron chariots, Israel's greatest fear, became death traps, bogged down in mud, swept away by the flood. When God fights, he uses creation itself. The stars, the rain, the river, all of nature bends to his purpose. And Sisera got down from his chariot and fled on foot. The great general, abandoning his technology, running for his life. Iron chariots are useless. His army is in chaos. Complete rout. But Barak pursued the chariots and the army to Harosheth-Hagoyim, and all the army of Sisera fell by the edge of the sword. Not a man was left. Total victory. Decisive defeat. Not one enemy soldier escaped, except Sisera, Jael and the tent peg. But Sisera fled on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, for there was peace between Jabin the king of Hazor and the house of Heber the Kenite. Sisera thought he was safe. There was a treaty. Heber's family had peace with King Jabin. This was neutral ground, a place to hide, to recover, to plan his next move. And Jael came out to meet Sisera and said to him, "Turn aside, my lord, turn aside to me. Do not be afraid." So he turned aside to her into the tent, and she covered him with a rug. Hospitality, warmth, safety. She invited him in, covered him, and made him comfortable. And he said to her, "Please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty." Exhausted, vulnerable, trusting her completely. So she opened a skin of milk and gave him a drink and covered him. Milk, not water. Something that would soothe, satisfy, make him drowsy. She was lulling him into security. And he said to her, "Stand at the opening of the tent, and if any man comes and asks you, 'Is anyone here?' say, 'No.'" He trusted her to hide him, to deny his presence, to protect him from his pursuers. But Jael, the wife of Heber, took a tent peg and took a hammer in her hand. Then she went softly to him and drove the peg into his temple until it went down into the ground while he was lying fast asleep from weariness. So he died. A tent peg, a hammer, tools of everyday life in a nomadic culture. Women pitched tents regularly. They knew how to drive pegs. Jael took what was in her hand, ordinary tools, and used them to execute judgment on the enemy of God's people. And behold, as Barak was pursuing Sisera, Jael went out to meet him and said to him, "Come, and I will show you the man whom you seek." Barak arrived, expecting to capture Sisera, but Jael met him at the door with an invitation. "Come see." So he went in with her, and behold, Sisera lay dead, with the tent peg in his temple. The prophecy was fulfilled. The honor of killing Sisera went not to Barak, but to a woman, not even to Deborah, to Jael, an unlikely heroine, a Kenite woman who feared the Lord more than she feared breaking a treaty. So on that day God subdued Jabin the king of Canaan before the people of Israel. And the hand of the people of Israel pressed harder and harder against Jabin the king of Canaan, until they destroyed Jabin king of Canaan. One battle began the dismantling of the oppression. Victory at Kishan led to ongoing victories until the enemy was completely destroyed. The Song of Deborah. Then sang Deborah and Barak the son of Abinoam on that day, that the leaders took the lead in Israel, but the people offered themselves willingly. Bless the Lord. A victory song, not to celebrate human achievement, but to bless the Lord. The first line makes it clear. When leaders lead and people volunteer willingly, that's a gift from God worth celebrating. Hey, O kings, give ear, O princes, to the Lord I will sing. I will make melody to the Lord, the God of Israel. This is theological interpretation through song. Deborah is teaching the next generation who really won the battle. Lord, when you went out from Seir, when you marched from the region of Edom, the earth trembled and the heavens dropped. Yes, the clouds dropped water. The mountains quaked before the Lord, even Sinai before the Lord, the God of Israel. She's connecting this victory to the Exodus. The same God who appeared at Sinai, who shook the mountains, who brought Israel out of Egypt. He's the one who fought at Kishan. In the days of Shamgar, son of Anath, in the days of Jael, the highways were abandoned, and travelers kept to the byways. The villages ceased in Israel. They ceased to be until I arose. Deborah arose as a mother in Israel. Before Deborah, life was paralyzed by fear. Roads were abandoned. Villages were deserted. People hid. But then Deborah arose, not as a warrior, but as a mother, someone who cared for the nation, who called them back to courage and faith. When new gods were chosen, then war was at the gates. Was shield or spear to be seen among 40,000 in Israel? The root problem, idolatry. They chose new gods, and as a result, they were disarmed, defenseless, terrified. Then came the roll call, the tribes who stepped up and the tribes who stayed behind. From Ephraim, their roots, they marched down into the valley. Following you, Benjamin, with your kinsmen. From Machir marched down the commanders, and from Zebulun those who bear the lieutenant's staff. The princes of Issachar came with Deborah, and Issachar was faithful to Barak. These tribes answered the call. They volunteered. They fought. But then, the contrast. Among the clans of Reuben there were great searchings of heart. Why did you sit still among the sheepfolds, to hear the whistling for the flocks? Reuben debated. They searched their hearts. They pondered, but they never acted. Paralysis by analysis. Gilead stayed beyond the Jordan. And Dan, why did he stay with the ships? Asher sat still at the coast of the sea, settling down by his landings. Gilead, Dan, Asher, they had excuses. Geography, commerce, convenience. But the bottom line, they didn't show up. Zebulun is a people who risk their lives to the death. Naphtali, too, on the heights of the field. These tribes were praised above all. They risked everything. They fought on the heights. They put their lives on the line. Then came the cosmic battle. The kings came. They fought. Then fought the kings of Canaan, at Tanakh, by the waters of Megiddo. They got no spoils of silver. From heaven the stars fought. From their courses they fought against Sisera. The torrent Kishon swept them away. The ancient torrent, the torrent Kishon. March on, my soul, with might. When God fights, the stars fight. The rivers fight. Creation itself becomes his army. And the enemy gets no spoils. Because this victory belongs to God alone. And then, Jael's praise. Most blessed of women will be Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, of tent-dwelling women most blessed. She sent her hand to the tent peg and her right hand to the workman's mallet. She struck Sisera. She crushed his head. She shattered and pierced his temple. Jael celebrated, not for being violent, but for being zealous for the Lord, for choosing God over diplomacy, for using what was in her hand to defeat God's enemy. The song ends with a haunting image, Sisera's mother at the window, waiting for him to return, imagining the spoils he must be dividing. Out of the window she peered. The mother of Sisera wailed through the lattice. Why is his chariot so long in coming? Why tarry the hoofbeats of his chariots? Her wisest princesses answer. Indeed, she answers herself. Have they not found and divided the spoil? A womb or two for every man. The irony is thick. She imagines victory, spoils, captive women. But her son is dead, is never coming home. And Deborah's final prayer, so may all your enemies perish, O Lord. But your friends are like the sun as he rises in his might. Let every enemy of God meet Sisera's fate. But let those who love God shine like the sun, bright, strong, unstoppable. And the land rested for 40 years. The image of this story is rich with theological truth. What is God teaching us through Deborah, Barak, and Jael? God raises leaders in surprising packages. Deborah was a woman in a patriarchal culture. Jael was a foreigner, a Kenite, not even an Israelite. Both were unlikely heroes. But God doesn't follow human expectations. He raises leaders based on availability and faithfulness, not gender or ethnicity or credentials. If you've ever thought, God can't use me, I'm the wrong gender, the wrong background, the wrong age, the wrong everything, this story says otherwise. God used a prophetess and a tent-dwelling woman to accomplish what an army of men hesitated to do. He can use you too. Hesitant faith still counts, but loses honor. Barak believed God's promise. He gathered the army. He went to battle. But he hesitated. He wouldn't go without Deborah. God didn't reject him. He used him anyway. But the honor of killing Sisera went to a woman, as Deborah prophesied. Delayed obedience is still obedience, but it costs something. You miss the fullness of what God wanted to give you. You share the glory instead of receiving it all. When God calls, go immediately. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't demand extra assurance. Step out in faith and receive the full reward. Everyday tools become weapons in God's hand. Jael used a tent peg and a hammer. Shamgar, in chapter 3, used an ox goad. Ad used a homemade sword. None of these were professional military weapons. God doesn't need impressive tools. He needs available people. Whatever is in your hand, your ordinary skills, your daily tools, your simple gifts, can become extraordinary in God's service. Stop waiting for better resources. Use what you have and watch God multiply it. Some step up, others stay behind. Zebulun and Naphtali risked their lives. Reuben searched their hearts but never moved. Dan and Asher stayed with their commerce. Meroz was cursed for refusing to help. When God calls his people to action, neutrality is not an option. You're either stepping up or staying behind. And heaven notices which you choose. Ask yourself, am I Zebulun, risking everything? Or am I Reuben, endlessly pondering but never acting? Am I fighting for God's purposes? Or am I staying comfortable with my flocks and ships? God fights with creation itself. The stars fought. The river swept them away. When God goes to war, he doesn't need human armies alone. He commands the universe. This should fill us with confidence. If God is for us, who can stand against us? If creation itself bends to his will, what enemy can prevail? Your battles aren't just you against the world. When you're fighting for God's purposes, the cosmos is on your side. Worship after victory teaches the next generation. Deborah didn't just win and move on. She sang. She created a theological interpretation of the victory, teaching Israel and future generations who really won the battle. Worship after victory is not optional. It's how we remember. It's how we pass down the faith. It's how we declare, this wasn't us. This was God. When God gives you a victory, don't just move on. Pause. Reflect. Sing. Tell the story. Teach your children what God has done. REFC10, take a breath. Let these truths settle into your soul. Maybe tonight you feel like you're the wrong person for what God is calling you to do. You're a woman in a man's world, a foreigner in a native land, ordinary in a world that celebrates extraordinary. Hear this. God specializes in using people like you. Deborah was a woman. Jael was a Kenite. Both were unlikely. Both were powerful in God's hands. Your wrong might be exactly right for what God wants to do. Your weakness might be his opportunity. Your ordinary tools might be his chosen instruments. Stop disqualifying yourself. Start asking, God, how do you want to use me? Maybe you're like Barak. You believe God, but you're hesitating. You want assurance. You want someone to go with you. You're not ready to step out alone. Hear this. God will still use you, but your hesitation will cost you something. The fullness of what he wanted to give will be shared with others. Don't miss the honor because you waited for perfect conditions. Don't lose the glory because you demanded extra assurance. Step out. Go. Trust that God goes before you. Maybe you're like the tribes who stayed behind. You have good reasons. Business to tend, geography to consider, flocks to care for. But the truth is, you're choosing comfort over courage, safety over sacrifice. Hear this. Heaven is keeping score. God notices who steps up and who stays behind. And one day, he'll honor the Zebulons and rebuke the Reubens. Which do you want to be? The one who risked everything for God's purposes, or the one who searched your heart endlessly but never moved? Maybe you're in a battle right now, and it feels like the enemy is too strong. 900 iron chariots, technology you can't match, strength you can't overcome. Hear this. When God fights, he uses the stars. He commands the rivers. He turns the enemy's strength into their weakness. Those iron chariots that seem so intimidating, God can bog them down in mud and sweep them away in a flood. The battle isn't yours, it's the Lord's. And he fights not with human weapons, but with cosmic power. Maybe you're a woman holding a tent peg, wondering how God could use something so small, so domestic, so ordinary. Hear this. Jael became one of the most blessed women in Israel because she used what was in her hand. The tent peg that pitched her family's home became the weapon that struck down God's enemy. Your ordinary is God's extraordinary. Your daily tools are his instruments of deliverance. Use what you have. Step out in faith and watch God do what an army couldn't do through your simple act of obedience. The Song of Deborah teaches us that worship is how we remember. It's how we pass down the faith. It's how we declare God's glory to the next generation. So when God gives you victory, when he delivers you from your enemies, when he answers your prayers, when he uses your tent peg to do something miraculous, don't just move on. Sing, celebrate, tell the story, teach your children, write it down. Make sure the next generation knows this was God, not us. Him. God raises leaders from unlikely places. He uses ordinary tools for extraordinary purposes. And when he fights, creation itself bends to his will. Next, we'll meet Gideon, a man hiding in a winepress, afraid and doubting, whom God calls mighty warrior. We'll watch God reduce his army from 32,000 to 300 to prove that victory comes from divine power, not human numbers. You are not disqualified by your gender, your background, or your ordinariness. You are chosen. You are equipped with exactly what God wants to use. Take what's in your hand, your tent peg, your ox goad, your simple gifts. Offer them to God, and trust that he can use them to defeat enemies you never thought you could overcome. The Lord goes before you. The stars fight for you. And when God is on your side, who can stand against you? Episode 3. Gideon, from fear to faith when God calls you mighty warrior while you're hiding. Welcome back. Take a deep breath. Let the quiet of this moment wash over you. We're continuing through Judges, the book that shows us the depths of human weakness and the heights of God's faithfulness. We've watched the cycle repeat. We've seen Deborah rise as a mother in Israel. We've witnessed Jael strike down an enemy with a tent peg. We've heard the song that celebrates God's cosmic victory. And for 40 years, there was peace. But tonight, the cycle begins again. Israel does evil. God hands them over to an enemy. And this time, the oppression is so severe that people are hiding in caves, fleeing to the mountains, watching their harvests get devoured before their eyes. Into this darkness, God comes looking for a deliverer, and he finds him in the most unlikely place, hiding in a winepress, threshing wheat in secret, paralyzed by fear. His name is Gideon, and God greets him with words that seem almost laughable. The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor, mighty warrior, this man hiding in a winepress, this fearful farmer who's about to argue with God 5 times before he finally obeys. Yes, because God doesn't see what is. He sees what will be. He doesn't call you based on your current state. He calls you based on your future identity in Him. Tonight, we watch a man transformed from coward to conqueror, from doubter to deliverer, from hiding in a winepress to leading with torches and trumpets. So settle in. Let your mind be still. Tonight we learn that God's power is made perfect in weakness. The story: 7 years of devastation. The people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord gave them into the hand of Midian 7 years. 7 years, not as long as some oppressions, but devastating in its intensity. And the hand of Midian overpowered Israel. And because of Midian, the people of Israel made for themselves the dens that are on the mountains and the caves and the strongholds. They were living like refugees in their own land, hiding in caves, fleeing to the mountains, driven from their homes by fear. For whenever the Israelites planted crops, the Midianites and the Amalekites and the people of the east would come up against them. They would encamp against them and devour the produce of the land, as far as Gaza, and leave no sustenance in Israel and no sheep or ox or donkey. Locusts, that's what the Midianites were like. They would swarm in at harvest time, along with their allies, the Amalekites and the eastern tribes, and strip the land bare. Everything the Israelites had worked for, planted, cultivated, gone, devoured, stolen, for they would come up with their livestock and their tents. They would come like locusts in number. Both they and their camels could not be counted, so that they laid waste the land as they came in. Overwhelming numbers, camels beyond counting, a mobile army that could strike anywhere, anytime, and disappear before Israel could respond. And Israel was brought very low because of Midian, very low, impoverished, starving, desperate, broken. And the people of Israel cried out for help to the Lord. Finally, after 7 years, they cried out, a prophet's rebuke. When the people of Israel cried out to the Lord on account of the Midianites, the Lord sent a prophet to the people of Israel. Before God sent a deliverer, He sent a prophet. Before He gave relief, He gave the truth. And the prophet said to them, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, I led you up from Egypt and brought you out of the house of slavery. And I delivered you from the hand of the Egyptians and from the hand of all who oppressed you, and drove them out before you and gave you their land. And I said to you, I am the Lord your God. You shall not fear the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But you have not obeyed my voice." The message was clear. I delivered you. I provided for you. I commanded you. And you disobeyed. Your suffering is not random. It's the consequence of forsaking me and fearing other gods. Truth before deliverance. Conviction before comfort. God doesn't just give us what we want. He tells us what we need to hear. The angel meets Gideon. Now the angel of the Lord came and sat under the terebinth at Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, while his son Gideon was beating out wheat in the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. Gideon, beating wheat in a winepress. Normally, you'd thresh wheat on an open threshing floor where the wind could blow away the chaff. But Gideon was hiding, working in secret, terrified that the Midianites would see and steal his grain. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, "The Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor." Mighty man of valor, mighty warrior, hero, to a man hiding in a winepress, to a man so afraid he's working underground, hoping no one notices. This is how God speaks. He calls out your future, not your present. He sees who you will become, not who you currently are. And Gideon said to him, "Please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his wonderful deeds that our fathers recounted to us? saying, "Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? But now the Lord has forsaken us and given us into the hand of Midian." Doubt, disappointment, despair. Gideon's response wasn't worship, it was accusation. If the Lord is with us, why this suffering? Where are the miracles we've heard about? It seems like God has abandoned us. Have you ever felt that way? God, if you're really with me, why is my life falling apart? Where are the miracles I read about in the Bible? It feels like you've left me. Gideon's honesty is striking. He didn't hide his doubts. He spoke them out loud to the angel of the Lord. And the Lord turned to him and said, "Go in this might of yours and save Israel from the hand of Midian. Do not I send you? Go in this might of yours." What might? The might of your doubt, your fear, your hiding? No, the might that comes from encountering God, the might of hearing his call, the might of being sent by him. You have everything you need, Gideon, because I'm sending you. And he said to him, "Please, Lord, how can I save Israel? Behold, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house." The first objection: I'm too weak. My family is too weak. I'm the youngest, the least significant, the last person you should choose. Sound familiar? Moses said the same thing. Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? And the Lord said to him, "But I will be with you, and you shall strike the Midianites as one man." The answer isn't about Gideon's strength. It's about God's presence. I will be with you. That's all you need. Gideon asked for a sign, and he said to him, "If now I have found favor in your eyes, then show me a sign that it is you who speaks with me." The second objection: prove it. Show me a sign. Let me know this is really you. Please do not depart from here until I come to you and bring out my present and set it before you. I need to prepare an offering. Wait here. And he said, "I will stay till you return." Grace, patience. God doesn't rebuke Gideon for asking. He waits. So Gideon went into his house and prepared a young goat and unleavened cakes from an ephah of flour. The meat he put in a basket, and the broth he put in a pot, and brought them to him under the terebinth and presented them. This wasn't a small meal. An ephah of flour is about 22 liters, a huge amount. A young goat. Broth. Gideon was giving generously, sacrificially, and the angel of God said to him, "Take the meat and the unleavened cakes, and put them on this rock, and pour the broth over them." And he did so. Then the angel of the Lord reached out the tip of the staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened cakes. And fire sprang up from the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened cakes. And the angel of the Lord vanished from his sight. Fire from the rock. Instant consumption of the offering. Then, gone. The angel disappeared. Then Gideon perceived that he was the angel of the Lord. And Gideon said, "Alas, O Lord God, for now I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." Terror. The ancient belief was that seeing God meant death. No one can see God and live. But the Lord said to him, "Peace be to you. Do not fear. You shall not die. Peace. Shalom. You're safe. I'm not here to destroy you. I'm here to deliver you." Then Gideon built an altar there to the Lord and called it, "The Lord is Peace." Yahweh Shalom. The Lord is peace. In the middle of war, in the middle of oppression, in the middle of fear, God's name is peace. The first test: tear down your father's altar. That night the Lord said to him, "Take your father's bull, and the second bull 7 years old, and pull down the altar of bull that your father has, and cut down the Asherah that is beside it, and build an altar to the Lord your God on the top of the stronghold here, with stones laid in due order. Then take the second bull and offer it as a burnt offering with the wood of the Asherah that you shall cut down." Before Gideon could fight Midian, he had to fight idolatry. Before he could confront the external enemy, he had to deal with the internal compromise. His father had a bull altar right there in their family compound, an Asherah pole, a symbol of the goddess. Gideon's own family was worshipping false gods. God's command: tear it down. Build an altar to me instead. Use the wood from the Asherah pole as fuel for the sacrifice. Confront the idolatry in your own house before you confront the enemy outside. So Gideon took 10 men of his servants and did as the Lord had told him. But because he was too afraid of his family and the men of the town to do it by day, he did it by night. Obedience mixed with faith. Gideon obeyed, but he did it at night because he was afraid of his family and his neighbors. Imperfect obedience is still obedience. God doesn't wait for you to be fearless. He works with you in your faith. When the men of the town rose early in the morning, behold, the altar of Baal was broken down, and the Asherah beside it was cut down, and the second bull was offered on the altar that had been built. Shock, outrage. Who would dare do this? And they said to one another, Who has done this thing? And after they had searched and inquired, they said, Gideon the son of Joash has done this thing. Then the men of the town said to Joash, Bring out your son, that he may die, for he has broken down the altar of Baal and cut down the Asherah beside it. A death sentence for tearing down an idol. The town was so committed to Baal worship that they wanted to execute Gideon. But Joash said to all who stood against him, Will you contend for Baal, or will you save him? Whoever contends for him shall be put to death by morning. If he is a god, let him contend for himself, because his altar has been broken down. Joash's defense was brilliant. If Baal is really a god, let him defend himself. Why do you need to fight for him? If he is powerful, let him strike down Gideon. Therefore on that day Gideon was called Jerubbaal, that is to say, let Baal contend against him, because he broke down his altar. A new name, Jerubbaal, let Baal contend, a name that proclaimed, Baal is powerless. He can't even defend his own altar. And Gideon survived. The idol couldn't touch him. The false god couldn't respond. The fleece, Gideon's weak faith. Then all the Midianites and the Amalekites and the people of the east came together, and they crossed the Jordan and encamped in the valley of Jezreel. The enemy was gathering. The crisis was escalating. But the Spirit of the Lord clothed Gideon, and he sounded the trumpet, and the Abiezrites were called out to follow him. The Spirit came upon him. This is the key. Not Gideon's strength, God's Spirit empowering him. And he sent messengers throughout all Manasseh, and they too were called out to follow him. And he sent messengers to Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, and they went up to meet them. Tribes responding, an army assembling. Gideon was stepping into his calling, but doubt crept back in. Then Gideon said to God, If you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said, behold, I am laying a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew on the fleece alone, and it is dry on all the ground, then I shall know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said. The fleece test. I need more proof. God, one more sign. And it was so. When he rose early the next morning and squeezed the fleece, he wrung enough dew from the fleece to fill a bowl with water. God accommodated his weakness. The fleece was soaked. The ground was dry. Please let me test just once more with the fleece. Please let it be dry on the fleece only. And then Gideon said to God, Let not your anger burn against me. Let me speak just once more. In all the ground let there be dew. One more time. I know I'm pushing it, but please, just once more. Let's reverse it. Dry fleece, wet ground. And God did so that night. And it was dry on the fleece only, and on all the ground there was dew. Patience, grace. God could have rebuked Gideon. He could have said, Enough with the tests. Just trust me. But he didn't. He gave Gideon the sign. This is not a model to imitate. Gideon's fleece tests reveal his weakness, not his wisdom. God already gave his word. The signs were accommodation to Gideon's fearful faith, but they also reveal God's kindness. He works with us where we are, even when our faith is weak. God reduces the army. Then Jerubbaal, that is, Gideon, and all the people who were with him rose early and encamped beside the spring of Herod. And the camp of Midian was north of them, by the hill of Moreh, in the valley. Gideon's army, 32,000 men. The Midianite alliance, so numerous they could not be counted. Gideon was already vastly outnumbered. The Lord said to Gideon, "The people with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hand, lest Israel boast over me, saying, 'My own hand has saved me.'" Too many. God was about to reduce the army so that victory would clearly be his, not Israel's. Now therefore proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, "Whoever is fearful and trembling, let him return home and hurry away from Mount Gilead. Anyone who's afraid can leave. No shame. Just go." Then 22,000 of the people returned, and 10,000 remained. 2/3 of the army left. Just like that. Fear was contagious, and God would rather have a few wholehearted soldiers than many half-hearted ones. And the Lord said to Gideon, "The people are still too many. Take them down to the water, and I will test them for you there." Still too many. Down to the water for another test. And the Lord said to Gideon, "Everyone who laps the water with his tongue, as a dog laps, you shall set by himself. Likewise, everyone who kneels down to drink." A strange test. Watch how they drink. And the number of those who lapped, putting their hands to their mouths, was 300 men. But all the rest of the people knelt down to drink water. 300 out of 32,000. That's a 99% reduction. And the Lord said to Gideon, "With the 300 men who lapped I will save you and give the Midianites into your hand, and let all the others go every man to his home." 300 men against an army like locusts, with camels beyond number. It was impossible. Humanly speaking, there was no way to win. Which was exactly the point. When God wins with 300, no one can say, "We did it ourselves." God strengthens Gideon's courage. The same night the Lord said to him, "Arise, go down against the camp, for I have given it into your hand. But if you are afraid to go down to the camp with Purah, your servant, and you shall hear what they say. And afterward your hand shall be strengthened to go down against the camp." God knew Gideon was still afraid, so he gave him one more encouragement. "Go listen to what the enemy is saying." Then he went down with Purah, his servant, to the outposts of the armed men who were in the camp. And the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the people of the east lay along the valley like locusts in abundance, and their camels were without number, as the sand that is on the seashore in abundance. Overwhelming, impossible odds. Gideon crept close and listened. When Gideon came, behold, a man was telling a dream to his comrade. And he said, "Behold, I dreamed a dream, and behold, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian and came to the tent and struck it so that it fell and turned it upside down, so that the tent lay flat. A barley loaf, the bread of the poor, tumbling into the camp and knocking down a tent." And his comrade answered, "This is no other than the sword of Gideon the son of Joash, a man of Israel. God has given into his hand Midian and all the camp." The Midianites were terrified. They knew God had already put fear in their hearts. As soon as Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, he worshipped, and he returned to the camp of Israel and said, "Arise, for the Lord has given the host of Midian into your hand." Worship, then action. Gideon finally believed. God had given them victory. The meaning. Gideon's story is rich with lessons about fear, faith, and how God works through weakness. God calls out your future. not your present. The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor. Gideon was hiding, fearful, doubting, but God called him a mighty warrior. God doesn't see you as you are. He sees you as you will become in Him. He speaks your identity before you live it. When God calls you, don't argue based on your current weakness. Listen to what He's calling you to become. Honest doubt is better than fake faith. Gideon didn't pretend. He didn't say, "Oh yes, Lord, I totally believe you," when he didn't. He was honest. If the Lord is with us, why all this suffering? Where are the miracles? And God didn't reject him for his honesty. He worked with him, patiently, graciously. You don't have to pretend with God. He'd rather have your honest doubt than your fake faith. The first battle is at the family altar. Before Gideon could fight Midian, he had to tear down his father's bull altar. Before you can confront external enemies, you have to deal with internal idols. What altars in your own family, your own heart, need to be torn down. You can't lead others to God while bowing to idols at home. Imperfect obedience is still obedience. Gideon tore down the altar at night because he was afraid. Not ideal, but he still did it. God doesn't wait for you to be fearless. He works with you in your faith. Do what He's calling you to do, even if you have to do it afraid. God reduces your resources to display His strength. From 32,000 to 10,000 to 300. God kept cutting until victory could only be attributed to Him. When God reduces your resources, your budget, your team, your options, it's not punishment. It's positioning. He's setting the stage for a miracle that can only be explained by His power. Stop trying to gather more. Trust Him with less. The enemy is already defeated in their own minds. The Midianites were having nightmares about barley loaves crushing their tents. God had already put fear in their hearts before the battle even started. Your enemies may look strong, but God is already working on them. They are more afraid of you than you realize, because they sense God is with you. God's patience with weak faith. The fleece tests reveal Gideon's weakness, but they also reveal God's patience. He could have rebuked Gideon. Instead, He accommodated him. God is patient with your weak faith. He doesn't demand perfect trust immediately. He walks with you, strengthens you, works with you where you are. But don't stay in weak faith forever. Grow, mature, learn to trust His word without needing constant signs. Reflection. Maybe tonight you feel like Gideon in the winepress. You're hiding, afraid, overwhelmed by the enemy, wondering where God is and why He's allowed all this suffering. Hear this. God is calling you mighty warrior right now, not because of what you feel, but because of who He's making you to be. Your fear doesn't disqualify you. Your doubt doesn't cancel His call. Your weakness is the very thing He wants to use to display His strength. Stop seeing yourself through the lens of your current fear. Start seeing yourself through the lens of God's call. You are not defined by where you're hiding. You're defined by who God says you are. Maybe God is calling you to tear down an altar in your own family, an idol you've been tolerating, a compromise you've been living with, a sin you've made peace with. Hear this. You can't fight the external enemy while bowing to internal idols. Before you can lead, you have to cleanse your own house. It's scary. Your family might get angry. Your friends might reject you. People might call for your head, like they did with Gideon. But if the idol is powerless, and it is, then it can't defend itself. Tear it down. Build an altar to the true God instead, and watch Him vindicate you. Maybe God is reducing your resources right now. Your income has dropped. Your team has left. Your options have narrowed. And you're panicking, thinking, how can I possibly succeed with so little? Hear this. God is setting you up for a miracle. He's reducing your strength so His strength can be displayed. He's cutting your army from 32,000 to 300 so that when victory comes, everyone will know it was Him. Stop trying to gather more. Stop begging for bigger numbers, more resources, better conditions. Trust Him with the 300. Trust Him with what seems like too little. Because when God wins with too little, His glory shines brightest. Maybe you're like Gideon, asking for one more sign, one more fleece, one more confirmation before you step out in faith. Hear this. God is patient with your weakness. He'll give you signs if you need them. But don't get stuck in the cycle of needing endless confirmation. At some point, you have to stop testing and start trusting. You have to stop asking for signs and start obeying His word. God has already spoken. He's already called you. He's already promised to be with you. Now it's time to believe Him and act. Maybe you're facing an enemy that seems overwhelming. The Midianites are like locusts. Their camels are beyond number. You have 300 men and some torches and trumpets. It looks impossible. Hear this. God has already put fear in your enemy's heart. They are having nightmares about you. They know God is with you. And when God fights, the enemy defeats itself. You don't have to be strong enough. You just have to be obedient enough. God will do the fighting. God calls you a mighty warrior even when you're hiding in a wine press. God works through your weakness, not despite it, and has already put fear in your enemy's heart. Watch the battle unfold as 300 men with torches and trumpets bring down an army. We'll witness God's victory through the most unlikely means. But we'll also see Gideon's tragic fall, how the man who refused to be king made an idol that ensnared his family. You are empowered by God's Spirit, and the battle is already won. I hear God call you by your future name, not your present fare. Step out of the winepress. The mighty warrior He sees is who you're becoming. Episode 4. Gideon's victory and fall when the deliverer becomes a snare. Welcome back. Take a deep breath. Let the stillness of this moment settle over you. We're continuing through Judges, and tonight we come to one of the most dramatic battles in Scripture and one of the most tragic endings. Last time, we watched God call Gideon from the winepress. We saw him tear down his father's Baal altar. We watched God reduce his army from 32,000 to 300. We heard the Midianite soldiers' nightmare about a barley loaf crushing a tent. And we saw Gideon finally believe that God had already given him victory. Tonight, we watch that victory unfold. 300 men, torches, trumpets, empty jars. The most unconventional battle plan in military history. And a victory so complete, so decisive, that Israel begs Gideon to be their king. But this story doesn't end with triumph. It ends with tragedy. Because Gideon, the man who destroyed his father's idol, will make an idol of his own. The deliverer who refused to be king will father a son who murders his brothers to seize the throne. The man empowered by God's Spirit will lead Israel right back into the snare of idolatry. This is the pattern in Judges. Deliverance doesn't last. Victory doesn't guarantee faithfulness. And even the best of God's servants can fall. So settle in. Let your mind be still. Tonight we'll learn that ending well is just as important as starting well. And sometimes, it's much harder. The story. The night attack. And he divided the 300 men into 3 companies and put trumpets into the hands of all of them in empty jars, with torches inside the jars. 300 men, divided into 3 groups of 100 each. And their weapons. Not swords, not spears, not shields. Trumpets, empty jars, torches hidden inside the jars. This is how God fights. Not with conventional weapons, not with overwhelming force, but with light, sound, and the element of surprise. And he said to them, "Look at me, and do likewise. When I come to the outskirts of the camp, do as I do. When I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me. Then blow the trumpets also on every side of all the camp and shout, for the Lord and for Gideon. Watch me, follow my lead. When I blow the trumpet, you blow yours. When I break my jaw, you break yours. When I shout, you shout. Unity, coordination. Everyone is doing the same thing at the same moment. So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outskirts of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, when they had just set the watch. The middle watch, around midnight, the darkest part of the night, the time when gods are drowsy, when the camp is sleeping, when alertness is lowest. Perfect timing. And they blew the trumpets and smashed the jars that were in their hands. Then the 3 companies blew the trumpets and broke the jars. They held in their left hands the torches, and in their right hands the trumpets to blow. And they cried out, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." Imagine the scene. Total darkness. The Midianite camp is sleeping. Then suddenly, crash, 300 jars shattering at once. The sound echoing through the valley. Light. 300 torches blazing, surrounding the camp on all sides. Blast. 300 trumpets blowing, the noise deafening. Shout. A sword for the Lord and for Gideon. Every man stood in his place around the camp, and all the army ran. They cried out and fled. Confusion. Panic. Terror. The Midianites woke to chaos. Light and noise from every direction, thinking they were surrounded by a massive army. When they blew the 300 trumpets, the Lord set every man's sword against his comrade and against all the army. This is the key. The Lord set them against each other. In the darkness and confusion, the Midianites couldn't tell friend from enemy. They started fighting each other. God fought the battle. Gideon's men just made noise and held torches. The actual killing, the Midianites did to themselves, and the army fled as far as Beth-Shittah towards Zererah, as far as the border of Abel-Meholah, by Tabbath. Complete rout. The enemy ran in every direction, terrified, pursued by their own confusion. And the men of Israel were called out from Naphtali and from Asher and from all Manasseh, and they pursued after Midian. Now the rest of Israel joined the chase. When they saw the victory God had given through 300, thousands rallied to pursue the fleeing enemy. Ephraim's complaint. Gideon sent messengers throughout the hill country of Ephraim, saying, "Come down against the Midianites and capture the waters as far as Beth-Barah, and also the Jordan." So all the men of Ephraim were called out, and they captured the waters as far as Beth-Barah, and also the Jordan. Strategic brilliance. Cut off their retreat. Hold the fords of the Jordan so they can't escape back to their homeland. And they captured the 2 princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeb. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, and Zeb they killed at the winepress of Zeb. Then they pursued Midian, and they brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon across the Jordan. 2 enemy princes captured and executed. Major victory for Ephraim. But then, jealousy. Then the men of Ephraim said to him, "What is this that you have done to us, not to call us when you went to fight against Midian?" And they accused him fiercely. Anger, resentment. "Why didn't you call us from the beginning? You left us out. You didn't give us the honor." This was the same complaint Ephraim had with Jephthah later. They had a sense of entitlement, a pride in their tribe. If there was glory to be had, they wanted to be there. And he said to them, "What have I done now in comparison with you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the grape harvest of Abiezer? God has given into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb, and Zeb. What have I been able to do in comparison with you?" Gideon's response was brilliant. Soft, diplomatic, humble. "What I did is nothing compared to what you did. My harvest is like picking up scraps. Your gleaning, just the leftovers, is better than my whole crop. You killed the princes. That's the real victory. I'm nothing compared to you." Then their anger against him subsided when he said this. A soft answer turns away wrath. Gideon could have fought back. He could have defended himself, reminded them that he won the battle with 300 while they sat at home. But he didn't. He deflected the glory to them, soothed their pride, and kept the peace. Wisdom. Sometimes dealing with jealous brothers is as important as defeating external enemies. The final pursuit. And Gideon came to Jordan and crossed over, he and the 300 men who were with him, exhausted yet pursuing. Exhausted, but I'm still pursuing it. Tired but not quitting. The battle wasn't over until the enemy kings were captured. So he said to the men of Sukkos, "Please give loaves of bread to the people who follow me, for they are exhausted, and I am pursuing after Zebah and Zalmunna, the kings of Midian." A reasonable request. We're pursuing your oppressors. We're fighting for your freedom. Give us some bread. And the officials of Sukkos said, "Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hand, that we should give bread to your army?" Skepticism. Cowardice. You haven't won yet. Why should we help you? What if Midian comes back and punishes us for aiding you? So Gideon said, "Well then, when the Lord has given Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, I will flail your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and with briars." A vow. When I win, and I will win, you're going to regret refusing to help God's army. And from there he went up to Penuel, and spoke to them in the same way. And the men of Penuel answered him as the men of Sukkos had answered. The same skepticism, the same refusal. And he said to the men of Penuel, "When I come again in peace, I will break down this tower. Your tower, your symbol of strength and security, I'm going to tear it down." Now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Karka with their army, about 15,000 men, all who were left of all the army of the people of the east, for there had fallen 120,000 men who drew the sword. 120,000 Midianite soldiers died. Only 15,000 remained. The army was decimated, and Gideon went up by the way of the tent dwellers east of Nobah and Jogbehah and attacked the army, for the army felt secure. A surprise attack. The enemy thought they were safe. They weren't. Zebah and Zalmunna fled, and he pursued them and captured the two kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and he threw all the army into a panic. The kings were captured. The army routed. Complete victory. Judgment on Sukkos and Penuel. Then Gideon the son of Joash returned from the battle by the ascent of Hiss. And he captured a young man of Sukkos and questioned him. And he wrote down for him the officials and elders of Sukkos, 7 to 7 men. A list. Names. The officials who refused to help. Gideon had their names. And he came to the men of Sukkos and said, "Behold, Zebah and Zalmunna, about whom you taunted me, saying, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hand, that we should give bread to your men who are exhausted? Here they are. I captured them, just like I said I would." And he took the elders of the city, and he took thorns of the wilderness and briars, and with them taught the men of Sukkos a lesson. Painful discipline, not execution, but suffering. A lesson learned through physical pain. And he broke down the tower of Penuel and killed the men of the city. Harsher judgment for Penuel. The tower was destroyed. The men killed. Why the difference? Perhaps Penuel's refusal was more defiant. Perhaps they had done additional harm. The text doesn't say. But Gideon kept his word, avenging his brothers. Then he said to Zebah and Zalmunna, "What kind of men were those whom you killed at Tabah?" Personal. This wasn't just about military victory. This was about family. They answered, "As you are, so were they." Every one of them resembled the son of a king. They looked like you, noble, regal, like princes. And he said, "They were my brothers, the sons of my mother. As the Lord lives, if you had saved them alive, I would not kill you." His brothers, murdered by these kings at some earlier raid. Gideon had been fighting not just for Israel's freedom, but to avenge his family. So he said to Jephthah, his firstborn, "Rise and kill them." But the young man did not draw his sword, for he was afraid, because he was still a young man. Gideon's son, too young, too afraid, unable to execute the enemy kings. Then Zebah and Zalmunna said, "Rise yourself and fall upon us, for as the man is, so is his strength." And Gideon arose and killed Zebah and Zalmunna, and he took the crescent ornaments that were on the necks of their camels. Justice done, the enemy kings were executed. Vengeance complete, the dangerous request. Then the men of Israel said to Gideon, "Rule over us, you and your son and your grandson also, for you have saved us from the hand of Midian." A request for monarchy, not just for Gideon, but for his descendants. A dynasty, a kingdom. This was a rejection of God's kingship. Israel was a theocracy. God was their king. Judges were temporary deliverers, not permanent rulers. Gideon said to them, "I will not rule over you, and my son will not rule over you. The Lord will rule over you." The right answer. Gideon refused the crown. He understood that Israel's king was God, not man. This should have been his finest moment. The great deliverer, humble enough to refuse power, pointing people back to God. But then, and Gideon said to them, "Let me make a request of you. Every one of you give me the earrings from his spoil." For they had golden earrings, because they were Ishmaelites. Gold, from the plunder, just the earrings. What harm could that do? And they answered, "We will willingly give them." And they spread a cloak, and every man threw in it the earrings of his spoil. And the weight of the golden earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold, besides the crescent ornaments and the pendants and the purple garments worn by the kings of Midian, and besides the collars that were around the necks of their camels. 1,700 shekels, about 40 pounds of gold, a massive amount, plus other treasures. And Gideon made an ephod of it and put it in his city, in Ophrah. An ephod, a priestly garment, something associated with seeking God's guidance, with worship. Gideon wasn't trying to create an idol. He was trying to honor God, to create a memorial, to give people a place to worship. But he did it his own way, not at the tabernacle where God had established worship, not under the priesthood God had ordained. His own ephod, in his own city, according to his own design. And all Israel whored after it there, and it became a snare to Gideon and to his family. Spiritual adultery. The people worshipped the ephod instead of God. They came to offer instead of the tabernacle. They followed Gideon's innovation instead of God's instruction, and it became a snare, a trap, to Gideon and his family. The very thing meant to honor God became the thing that led them away from him. So Midian was subdued before the people of Israel, and they did not lift up their heads anymore. And the land had rested 40 years in the days of Gideon, 40 years of peace. Victory complete. Oppression ended. But the seeds of future disaster were already planted. Gideon's family, Jerubbaal the son of Joash, went and lived in his own house. Now Gideon had 70 sons, his own offspring, for he had many wives. 70 sons, many wives. Gideon built a large household, almost like a king, even though he refused the title. And his concubine who was in Shechem also bore him a son, and he called his name Abimelech. Abimelech, the name means "my father is king." Ironic, tragic. Gideon refused to be king, but he named his son "my father is king." And that son would become the darkest chapter in Judges yet. And Gideon the son of Joash died in a good old age and was buried in the tomb of Joash his father, at Ophrah of the Abiezrites. Gideon died, respected, honored, buried with his fathers. But the story doesn't end peacefully. As soon as Gideon died, the people of Israel turned again and whored after the Baals and made Baal-berith their god. And the people of Israel did not remember the Lord their God, who had delivered them from the hand of all their enemies on every side. And they did not show steadfast love to the family of Jerubbaal, that is, Gideon, in return for all the good that he had done to Israel. Immediate apostasy. As soon as Gideon died, they went back to Baal, and they turned on Gideon's family, the family of the man who had delivered them. The cycle continued. Deliverance, peace, then deepest sin. Abimelech, the false king. Now Abimelech the son of Jerubbaal went to Shechem to his mother's relatives and said to them and to the whole clan of his mother's family, say in the ears of all the leaders of Shechem, which is better for you, that all 70 of the sons of Jerubbaal rule over you, or that one rule over you? Remember also that I am your bone and your flesh. Ambition, manipulation. Abimelech wanted to be king, and he used his mother's family connections in Shechem to gather support. And his mother's relatives spoke all these words on his behalf in the ears of all the leaders of Shechem, and their hearts inclined to follow Abimelech, for they said, he is our brother. Tribal loyalty, blood connection. They chose Abimelech because he was one of them, and they gave him 70 pieces of silver out of the house of Baal-berith, with which Abimelech hired worthless and reckless fellows who followed him. Money from the temple of Baal, used to hire mercenaries. This was evil from the start, funded by idolatry, carried out by violent men. And he went to his father's house at Ophrah and killed his brothers, the sons of Jerubbaal, 70 men, on one stone. One stone. Mass execution. 70 brothers murdered in a single act of brutal violence. But Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, was left, for he hid himself. One survivor, the youngest, hiding while his brothers were slaughtered. And all the leaders of Shechem came together, and all Beth Millo, and they went and made Abimelech king. By the oak of the pillar at Shechem, they crowned him. Abimelech, my father is king, became what his father refused to be, but not by God's will, by murder, by ambition, by bloodshed. Jotham's parable. When it was told to Jotham, he went and stood on top of Mount Gerizim and cried aloud and said to them, listen to me, you leaders of Shechem, that God may listen to you. Jotham, the survivor, climbed the mountain and pronounced a curse through a parable. The trees once went out to anoint a king over them, and they said to the olive tree, reign over us. But the olive tree said to them, shall I leave my abundance, by which gods and men are honored, and go hold sway over the trees? The fruitful trees refused to rule. Why leave productivity for power? And the tree said to the fig tree, you come and reign over us. But the fig tree said to them, shall I leave my sweetness and my good fruit and go hold sway over the trees? And the trees said to the vine, you come and reign over us. But the vine said to them, shall I leave my wine that cheers God and men and go hold sway over the trees? The productive refuse, the useful decline. Then all the trees said to the bramble, you come and reign over us. And the bramble said to the trees, if in good faith you are anointing me king over you, then come and take refuge in my shade. But if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. The bramble, a thorn bush, useless, unproductive, accepts and threatens to bane everything down. The point: when good people refuse to lead, bad people seize power, and everyone suffers. Now therefore, if you acted in good faith and integrity when you made Abimelech king, and if you have dealt well with Jerubbaal and his house and have done to him as his deeds deserved, for my father fought for you and risked his life and delivered you from the hand of Midian, and you have risen up against my father's house this day and have killed his sons, 70 men on one stone, and have made Abimelech, the son of his female servant, king over the leaders of Shechem, because he is your relative. If you then have acted in good faith and integrity with Jerubbaal and with his house this day, then rejoice in Abimelech, and let him also rejoice in you. But if not, let fire come out from Abimelech and devour the leaders of Shechem and Beth Millo, and let fire come out from the leaders of Shechem and from Beth Millo and devour Abimelech. A curse. If you've done it right, fine. But if you've done evil, which you have, may you destroy each other. May Abimelech devour you, and may you devour him. And Jotham ran away and fled and went to Beer and lived there, because of Abimelech, his brother. He prophesied, then disappeared. He didn't stay to fight. He spoke the truth and left. The curse fulfilled. Abimelech ruled over Israel for 3 years. Not judged, not delivered, ruled like a tyrant. And God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the leaders of Shechem. And the leaders of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech, that the violence done to the 70 sons of Jerubbaal might come, and their blood be laid on Abimelech their brother, who killed them, and on the men of Shechem, who strengthened his hands to kill his brothers. God sent division, not to bless, but to judge, to bring the curse to pass. The alliance built on blood would be broken by blood. The leaders of Shechem began to betray Abimelech. Gaal, son of Ebed, stirred up a rebellion. Abimelech crushed it, destroyed Shechem, sowed it with salt, and burned a tower full of people alive. Violence begetting violence, blood calling for more blood. Then Abimelech went to Thebez and encamped against Thebez and captured it. But there was a strong tower within the city, and all the men and women and all the leaders of the city fled to it and shut themselves in. And they went up to the roof of the tower. Another siege, another tower to burn. And Abimelech came to the tower and fought against it and drew near to the door of the tower to burn it with fire. And a certain woman threw an upper millstone on Abimelech's head and crushed his skull. A woman, an unnamed woman, with a millstone, a heavy grinding stone used for making flour. She dropped it on Abimelech's head. His skull was crushed. Then he called quickly to the young man, his armor-bearer, and said to him, "Draw your sword and kill me, lest they say of me, 'A woman killed him.'" And his young man thrust him through, and he died. Pride, even in death. Abimelech couldn't bear the shame of being killed by a woman, so he had his armor-bearer finish him off. Thus God returned the evil of Abimelech, which he committed against his father in killing his 70 brothers. And God also made all the evil of the men of Shechem return on their heads. And upon them came the curse of Jotham the son of Jerubbaal. Justice. Jotham's curse was fulfilled. Abimelech and Shechem destroyed each other, exactly as prophesied. The meaning. Gideon's story ends in tragedy. What can we learn from his victory and his fall? God wins with unconventional weapons. 300 men, torches, trumpets, empty jars. No swords mentioned for the initial attack. God doesn't fight the way the world fights. He uses light, sound, surprise, and then lets the enemy destroy themselves. When you're facing overwhelming odds, don't assume you need overwhelming force. Trust God's strategy, even when it seems foolish. He specializes in winning battles in ways that give him all the glory. A soft answer turns away wrath. Ephraim was furious with Gideon. He could have fought back. Instead, he deflected the glory to them and soothed their pride. Sometimes dealing with jealous allies is harder than defeating external enemies. Wisdom, humility, and gentle words can prevent civil war. Don't let pride destroy what God has built. Be willing to give credit, share honor, and keep peace, even when you deserve recognition. Unbelief in allies deserves rebuke. Sukkot and Penuel refused to help God's army. They doubted victory. They feared Midian more than they trusted God. Gideon disciplined them, painfully, because refusing to support God's work when you're able is a serious sin. Neutrality is not an option when God is moving. You're either helping or hindering. And if you're hindering, expect judgment. Refusing power is wise. Creating alternative worship is not. Gideon refused to be king. Excellent. He pointed people back to God as their king. Perfect. But then he made an ephod and set it up in his hometown. And it became a snare. You can do the right thing, refusing power, and still do the wrong thing, creating your own way of worship. Good intentions don't excuse disobedience to God's established order. God doesn't need your innovations. He needs your obedience. Worship Him the way He commands, not the way you invent. What you build can become a snare. Gideon's ephod was meant to honor God, but it led Israel into idolatry. Sometimes the very things we create to serve God become the things that lead us away from Him. Ministries, methods, traditions, monuments. If people worship what you built instead of God, tear it down. If your legacy becomes a snare, it's better to have no legacy at all. How you name things matters. Gideon refused to be king, but he named his son Abimelech. My father is king. Names carry meaning. Words shape reality. What you call things influences what they become. Gideon verbally rejected kingship, but subtly embraced it through his son's name. And that son became a murderous tyrant. Be careful what you name. Be careful what you speak. Words have power. When good people don't lead, bad people seize power. The productive trees refuse to rule, so the bramble accepted. When godly people refuse positions of authority, out of humility or fear, ungodly people fill the vacuum, and everyone suffers. Sometimes leading is not about ambition, it's about responsibility. If you have the ability to lead well, and you refuse, someone worse will take your place. Evil built on blood will be repaid with blood. Abimelech murdered his brothers to seize power. He ruled through violence, and he died violently, crushed by a woman's millstone. All who take the sword will perish by the sword. Violence begets violence. Blood calls for blood. You can't build anything lasting on murder, betrayal, and treachery. What you sow, you will reap. Reflection. Take a slow breath. Let these truths settle deep. Maybe you're in a battle right now that seems impossible. The enemy is overwhelming. Your resources are limited. You feel like Gideon with 300 men facing an army like locusts. Hear this. God specializes in unconventional victories. He doesn't need you to have more. He just needs you to obey with what you have. Stop looking for more resources, more people, more strength. Trust His strategy. Use the torches and trumpets He's given you, and watch Him make the enemy defeat themselves. Maybe you're dealing with jealous people who are angry because God used you and they weren't involved. Like Ephraim complaining to Gideon. Hear this. Don't fight back. Don't defend yourself. Don't demand the recognition you deserve. Give them the honor. Deflect the glory. Keep the peace. Your humility will disarm their anger. Your soft answer will turn away wrath. And God will honor you for choosing unity over vindication. Maybe you've been creating your own ways of worshiping God, your own methods, your own innovations. Like Gideon's ephod, well-intentioned but not what God commanded. Hear this. Good intentions don't excuse disobedience. God doesn't need your creativity in worship. He's already told you how to worship Him. Through Jesus Christ, in spirit and truth. Tear down the ephod. Dismantle the innovations. Stop creating new ways and return to God's way. Maybe something you built to honor God has become a snare. People are worshiping the ministry instead of the Master, celebrating the method instead of the Messiah, following you instead of following God. Hear this. If what you built leads people away from God, it needs to go. Even if it was meant for good. Even if it cost you everything to build. If it's become an idol, tear it down. Your legacy is not more important than God's glory. What people remember about you is not more important than whether they know Him. Maybe you're avoiding leadership because you don't want the responsibility, the criticism, the burden. You're like the olive tree, the fig tree, the vine, productive in your own sphere but unwilling to rule. Hear this. When good people refuse to lead, bad people seize power. Your humility might seem noble, but if it allows evil to rise, it's actually cowardice. Step up. Lead. Not because you want power, but because you have a responsibility to use the influence God has given you for good. Maybe you're watching someone like Abimelech, someone who sees power through violence, who rules through fear, who murders to maintain control. Hear this. Evil built on blood will be repaid with blood. You don't have to take revenge. God will handle it. The millstone is coming. Jotam's curse will be fulfilled. What they sowed, they will reap. Justice may be delayed, but it's certain. Trust God to judge. Your job is to speak truth, like Jotham did from the mountain, and then let God handle the rest. The story of Gideon is a warning. You can start well and end poorly. You can be empowered by God's Spirit and still fall into sin. You can deliver a nation and still ensnare your family. Ending well is just as important as starting well. Finishing strong requires vigilance, humility, and constant dependence on God. Gideon should have destroyed the ephod. He should have taught his sons to seek God alone. He should have been more careful about what he named his children, what he allowed in his household, what legacy he was leaving. He won the battle but lost the long game. He defeated Midian but couldn't defeat his own compromises. God wins battles with the most unlikely weapons. But victory in battle doesn't guarantee victory in life. Ending well requires vigilance. We'll meet Jephthah, another unlikely deliverer, rejected by his family, leading a band of outlaws. We'll watch him win a great victory but make a terrible vow. We'll see the cost of rash words spoken to God. You are called to fight God's battles his way, and you're called to finish well, not just start well. Close your eyes. Examine your life. What efforts have you built? What innovations have become snares? What are you naming that will shape the future? Trust God's strategy. Worship God's way. Finish God's race. And may your ending be better than Gideon's. Episode 5. Jephthah, the outcast who made a vow when victory costs everything. Welcome back. Take a deep breath. Let the stillness wash over you. We're continuing through Judges, this book of cycles, of flawed heroes, of God's faithfulness despite human failure. We've watched the pattern repeat. Gideon delivered Israel, refused to be king, but made an ephod that became a snare. His son Abimelech murdered 70 brothers to seize a throne his father had refused. Violence bred more violence until Abimelech died with his skull crushed by a millstone. After Abimelech came 2 minor judges, Tola and Jui, about whom we know very little. 23 years of peace under Tola, 22 years under Jui. Quiet, stabilizing leadership, but no spiritual renewal. And then, once again, Israel did evil. Once again, they worshipped foreign gods. Once again, God's anger burned. And this time, the oppression came from 2 directions: Philistines from the west, Ammonites from the east. 18 years of crushing oppression. 18 years before they cried out. And when they did, God's response was shocking. Go cry to the gods you've chosen. Let them deliver you. But Israel repented. They put away their idols, and God's soul was grieved by their misery. Tonight, we meet the man God raised to deliver them. His name is Jephthah, and his story is one of the most tragic in all of Judges. A man rejected by his family, a leader of outlaws and outcasts, a mighty warrior who won a great victory, and a father who made a vow he should never have made, and paid a price no parent should ever pay. So settle in. Let your mind be still. Tonight we learn that rash words to God have consequences, and sometimes deliverance comes with unbearable costs. The story, Israel's desperate cry. The people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord and served the Baals and the Ashtaroth, the gods of Syria, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the Ammonites, and the gods of the Philistines. And they forsook the Lord and did not serve him. This wasn't casual idolatry. This was comprehensive apostasy. They worshipped the gods of every nation around them. A spiritual buffet. Everything except the Lord who had delivered them. So the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of the Philistines and into the hand of the Ammonites. And they crushed and oppressed the people of Israel that year. For 18 years they oppressed all the people of Israel who were beyond Jordan in the land of the Amorites, which is in Gilead. 18 years. Crushed, oppressed, especially the tribes east of the Jordan, Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh. They bore the brunt of Ammonite cruelty. And the Ammonites crossed the Jordan to fight also against Judah and against Benjamin and against the house of Ephraim, so that Israel was severely distressed. The oppression spread west of the Jordan too. All of Israel is suffering. And the people of Israel cried out to the Lord, saying, "We have sinned against you, because we have forsaken our God and have served the Baals." Finally, confession. Not just help us, but we have sinned. And the Lord said to the people of Israel, "Did I not save you from the Egyptians and from the Amorites, from the Ammonites and from the Philistines? The Sidonians also, and the Amalekites and the Maonites oppressed you, and you cried out to me, and I saved you out of their hand. Yet you have forsaken me and served other gods. Therefore I will save you no more. Go and cry out to the gods whom you have chosen. Let them save you in the time of your distress." Brutal words. Tough love. You want those gods? Fine. Let them save you. I'm done. God was not obligated to deliver them. They had broken the covenant repeatedly. They had no claim on his mercy. And the people of Israel said to the Lord, "We have sinned. Do to us whatever seems good to you. Only please deliver us this day." Surrender. Submission. Do whatever you want to us. Punish us however you see fit. Just please, don't leave us in this oppression. So they put away the foreign gods from among them and served the Lord. Repentance. Not just words, action. They removed the idols. They returned to worshiping Yahweh alone. And he became impatient over the misery of Israel. A stunning phrase. God's soul was grieved. He couldn't bear to watch his people suffer any longer, even though they deserved it, even though he had every right to abandon them. His compassion triumphed over his anger. His love won over his justice. This is the heart of God. Slow to anger, quick to compassion, unable to watch his children suffer without being moved to act. Looking for a leader. Then the Ammonites were called to arms, and they encamped in Gilead. And the people of Israel came together, and they encamped at Mizpah. The crisis was escalating. The Ammonites were gathering for war. Israel needed a leader, and the people, the leaders of Gilead, said to one another, "Who is the man who will begin to fight against the Ammonites? He shall be head over all the inhabitants of Gilead." Desperation. They had no judgment, no general, no one to lead them into battle. So they made an offer. Whoever will fight will become our leader. Jephthah the outcast. Now Jephthah the Gileadite was a mighty warrior, but he was the son of a prostitute. Gilead was the father of Jephthah. Jephthah, a mighty warrior, courageous, skilled, strong, but also illegitimate, the son of a prostitute, a half-brother to Gilead's legitimate sons. And Gilead's wife also bore him sons. And when his wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah out and said to him, "You shall not have an inheritance in our father's house, for you are the son of another woman." Rejection. Exile. His own brothers kicked him out. "You don't belong here. You're not really one of us. You're the son of a prostitute. Get out." The pain of that rejection must have been crushing. Not chosen by his father, not wanted by his brothers, cast out from his family, rejected for something that wasn't his fault, the circumstances of his birth. Then Jephthah fled from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob, and worthless fellows collected around Jephthah and went out with him. Tob, a land on the fringes. And there, Jephthah became the leader of a band of outlaws. Worthless fellows. The word can mean empty, reckless, desperate men. Men with nothing to lose. Jephthah became something like a mercenary captain, a warrior leader, respected by outcasts, feared by enemies, but still in exile. The elders' request. After a time the Ammonites made war against Israel. And when the Ammonites made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to bring Jephthah from the land of Tob. Desperation drove them to the man they had rejected. When the crisis was severe enough, when no one else would lead, they went to Jephthah. And they said to Jephthah, "Come and be our leader, that we may fight against the Ammonites. We need you. Come back. Lead us." But Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "Did you not hate me and drive me out of my father's house? Why have you come to me now when you are in distress?" The wound was still raw. You hated me. You kicked me out. And now, when you're desperate, you want me back? Jephthah wasn't going to let them forget. He wasn't going to pretend it never happened. And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "That is why we have turned to you now, that you may go with us and fight against the Ammonites and be our head over all the inhabitants of Gilead." Acknowledgement. Admission. Yes, we rejected you, but we need you. And if you lead us, we'll make you our head, not just for this battle, but permanently. Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "If you bring me home again to fight against the Ammonites, and the Lord gives them over to me, I will be your head." Negotiation. If I win, I'm in charge. Permanently. Not just a military leader, a civil leader too. And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "The Lord will be witness between us if we do not do as you say." An oath. God is witness. We promise. You win, you lead. So Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and leader over them. The outcast became the commander. The rejected son became the head. The man driven from his father's house returned as the leader of his people. Jephthah's diplomacy. And Jephthah spoke all his words before the Lord at Mizpah. Before going to war, Jephthah went before the Lord. He prayed. He sought God's presence. He acknowledged that victory would come from God, not military might. Then Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites and said, "What do you have against me, that you have come to me to fight against my land?" Diplomacy before violence. Try negotiation first. Why are we fighting? What's the real issue? And the king of the Ammonites answered the messengers of Jephthah, "Because Israel on coming up from Egypt took away my land, from the Arnon to the Jabbok and to the Jordan. Now therefore restore it peaceably." A territorial claim. You stole our land when you came out of Egypt. Give it back. Jephthah sent messengers again to the king of the Ammonites and said to him, "Thus says Jephthah, Israel did not take away the land of Moab or the land of the Ammonites, but when they came up from Egypt, Israel went through the wilderness to the Red Sea and came to Kadesh." History lesson. Let me tell you what actually happened. Then Israel sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, "Please let us pass through your land." But the king of Edom would not listen. And they sent also to the king of Moab, but he would not consent. So Israel remained at Kadesh. Then they journeyed through the wilderness and went around the land of Edom and the land of Moab and arrived on the east side of the land of Moab and camped on the other side of the Arnon. But they did not enter the territory of Moab, for Arnon was the boundary of Moab. We didn't invade you. We went around you. We respected your borders. Israel then sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, king of Heshbon, and Israel said to him, "Please let us pass through your land to our country." But Sihon did not trust Israel to pass through his territory. So Sihon gathered all his people together and encamped at Jahaz and fought with Israel. And the Lord, the God of Israel, gave Sihon and all his people into the hand of Israel, and they defeated them. So Israel took possession of all the land of the Amorites, who inhabited that country. We fought the Amorites, not the Ammonites. We took Amorite land, not yours. And we took it because they attacked us first, and God gave us victory. So then the Lord, the God of Israel, dispossessed the Amorites from before his people Israel. And are you to take possession of them? Will you not possess what Chemosh your God gives you to possess? And all that the Lord our God has dispossessed before us, we will possess. Your God gives you land. Our God gives us land. You worship Chemosh. We worship Yahweh. He gave us this land. It's not yours to reclaim. Now are you any better than Balak the son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did he ever contend against Israel? Or did he ever go to war with them? While Israel lived in Heshbon and its villages, and in Aroer and its villages, and in all the cities that are on the banks of the Arnon, 300 years, why did you not deliver them within that time? 300 years. You've had 3 centuries to make this claim. Why now? If this land was really yours, why didn't you fight for it when Israel first took it? I therefore have not sinned against you, and you do me wrong by making war on me. Let the Lord, the judge, decide this day between the people of Israel and the people of Ammon. I haven't wronged you. You're wronging me. Let God judge between us. But the king of the Ammonites did not listen to the words of Jephthah that he sent to him. Diplomacy failed. The king refused to listen. War was inevitable. The rash vow. Then the Spirit of the Lord was upon Jephthah. Empowerment. The divine anointing. The same Spirit that came upon Gideon, upon Othniel. God was with Jephthah, and he passed through Gilead and Manasseh and passed on to Mizpah of Gilead. And from Mizpah of Gilead he passed on to the Ammonites, mobilizing the troops, gathering the army, marching toward battle. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord and said, if you will give the Ammonites into my hand, then whatever comes out from the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the Ammonites shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. A vow, a bargain with God. If you give me victory, I'll sacrifice whatever comes out of my house first. This was rash, foolish, unnecessary. God had already given his Spirit to Jephthah. The victory was already promised. Jephthah didn't need to make a deal. But fear, perhaps, or desperation, or a misguided attempt to obligate God. Whatever the reason, Jephthah made a vow he should never have made. So Jephthah crossed over to the Ammonites to fight against them, and the Lord gave them into his hand. And he struck them from Aroer to the neighborhood of Minnith, 20 cities, and as far as Abel-keramim, with a great blow. So the Ammonites were subdued before the people of Israel. Total victory, decisive defeat of the enemy. 20 cities were captured. The oppression ended. God kept his part. He gave Jephthah the victory. The Spirit empowered him. The Lord delivered the enemy into his hand. But now, Jephthah had to keep his vow. The tragic homecoming. Then Jephthah came to his home at Mizpah, and behold, his daughter came out to meet him with tambourines and with dances. She was his only child. Besides her he had neither son nor daughter. His daughter, his only child, coming out with joy, with music, with celebration, dancing to welcome her father home from war, the first thing out of his house, the first to greet him. And as soon as he saw her, he tore his clothes and said, Alas, my daughter, you have brought me very low, and you have become the cause of great trouble to me. For I have opened my mouth to the Lord, and I cannot take back my vow. Horror, anguish. Jephthah tore his clothes, a sign of profound grief. You have brought me very low. Not an accusation against her, a statement of his own devastation. I made a vow, and you're the one I have to fulfill it with. And she said to him, My father, you have opened your mouth to the Lord. Do as you have promised, since the Lord has avenged you of your enemies, the Ammonites. Submission, acceptance, remarkable faith. You made a vow to God. God gave you victory. Keep your word." So she said to him, "Let this thing be done for me. Leave me alone for 2 months, that I may go up and down on the mountains and weep for my virginity, I and my companions." 2 months, not to escape, not to find a way out, but to mourn, to grieve what would never be: marriage, children, a future. Weep for my virginity. She would die without marrying, without having children, without continuing her father's line. So he said, "Go." Then he sent her away for 2 months, and she departed, she and her companions, and wept for her virginity on the mountains. 2 months of mourning, 2 months of grief, wandering the hills with her friends, weeping for the life she would never live. And at the end of 2 months, she returned to her father, who did with her according to his vow that he had made. The text is restrained. It doesn't describe the moment. It doesn't detail what happened. It simply says, he did what he vowed. She had never known a man. She died unmarried, childless, a life cut short because of her father's rash vow. And it became a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel went year by year to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite 4 days in the year. A memorial, an annual mourning. The women of Israel remembering this tragedy, honoring this young woman who submitted to her father's vow, grieving the cost of rash words. Civil war with Ephraim. The men of Ephraim were called to arms, and they crossed to Zaphon and said to Jephthah, "Why did you cross over to fight against the Ammonites and did not call us to go with you? We will burn your house over you with fire." Again, just like with Gideon, Ephraim is angry that they weren't called to battle, demanding to share the glory, threatening violence. And Jephthah said to them, "I and my people had a great dispute with the Ammonites, and when I called you, you did not save me from their hand. And when I saw that you would not save me, I took my life in my hand and crossed over against the Ammonites, and the Lord gave them into my hand. Why then have you come up to me this day to fight against me?" Defense: I called you. You didn't come, so I fought without you. Why are you complaining now? Then Jephthah gathered all the men of Gilead and fought with Ephraim. And the men of Gilead struck Ephraim, because they said, "You are fugitives of Ephraim, you Gileadites, in the midst of Ephraim and Manasseh." Ephraim insulted them, called them fugitives, implied they weren't real Israelites, and the insult led to war. And the Gileadites captured the fords of Jordan against the Ephraimites. And when any of the fugitives of Ephraim said, "Let me go over," the men of Gilead said to him, "Are you an Ephraimite?" When he said, "No," they said to him, "Then say Shibboleth." And he said, "Sibboleth," for he could not pronounce it right. Then they seized him and slaughtered him at the fords of the Jordan. At that time 42,000 of the Ephraimites fell. A linguistic test, an accent difference. The Ephraimites couldn't pronounce the sh sound properly. They said Sibboleth instead of Shibboleth, and that mispronunciation cost them their lives. 42,000 men were killed, not by foreign enemies, by their own brothers. Civil war, Israelite killing Israelite. Jephthah judged Israel for 6 years. Then Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried in his city in Gilead. 6 years, a short judgeship. A man who won a great victory but lived with unspeakable grief. A deliverer who saved his nation but lost his only child. The meaning: Jephthah's story is heartbreaking. What can we learn from this tragedy? God uses rejected people. Jephthah was the son of a prostitute, rejected by his family, driven out, living with outcasts. But when Israel needed a deliverer, God raised up the rejected one. The outcast became the commander. The illegitimate son became the head. If you've been rejected by your family, by the church, by society, know this: God sees you. Your rejection doesn't disqualify you from His purposes. He often chooses the rejected to accomplish His greatest works. Past wounds don't disqualify you from future calling. Jephthah confronted his rejectors. You hated me. You drove me out. Why come to me now? He didn't pretend it never happened. He named the wound, but he also didn't let the wound stop him from answering the call. You can acknowledge your pain and still obey God's call. Your past hurts don't have to define your future obedience. Seek peace before war. Jephthah didn't immediately attack. He sent messengers. He tried diplomacy. He laid out the historical case. He appealed to reason. Only when all attempts at peace failed did he go to war. This is wisdom. Exhaust peaceful options before resorting to violence. Try understanding before attacking. Seek resolution before conflict. Don't make rash vows to God. This is the central lesson. Jephthah's vow was unnecessary, foolish, and tragic. God had already given his spirit to Jephthah. The victory was already promised. Jephthah didn't need to bargain with God. He didn't need to make a deal. But he did, and it cost him everything. Ecclesiastes 5 verses 4-5 says, When you vow a vow to God, do not delay paying it, for he has no pleasure in fools. Pay what you vow. It is better that you should not vow than that you should vow and not pay. Don't make promises to God in moments of desperation. Don't try to bargain with him. Don't obligate yourself with vows that might have devastating consequences. God doesn't need your vows. He needs your trust. God gives victory despite our foolishness. Jephthah made a rash vow, but God still gave him victory. The vow didn't earn God's favor. God had already decided to deliver Israel. This is grace. God works despite our foolishness, not because of our wisdom. He doesn't wait for us to get everything right before he acts. But grace doesn't remove consequences. God gave victory, but Jephthah still had to live with his vow. Some consequences can't be undone. Jephthah's daughter died because of his vow. That couldn't be taken back. The words were spoken. The vow was made, and it had to be kept. Some decisions have permanent consequences. Some word can't be unspoken. Some vows can't be broken. This is why wisdom, discernment, and careful words matter. Think before you speak. Consider consequences before you commit. Bitterness between brothers leads to death. The conflict with Ephraim ended in civil war. 42,000 Israelites killed by other Israelites. Jealousy, insults, wounded pride, and it escalated into slaughter. When God's people fight each other instead of the enemy, everyone loses. Guard against bitterness. Resist jealousy. Refuse to let insults become wars. Reflection. Take a slow breath. Let these truths settle. Maybe you're the rejected one, the illegitimate child, the outcast, the one your family drove away. Like Jephthah, you've been told you don't belong. Hear this, God sees you. Your rejection by humans doesn't mean rejection by God. He often raises up the rejected, the outcast, the unlikely. The elders will come looking for you when they're desperate. But more importantly, God already knows where you are, and He's preparing you, even in exile, for the work He's called you to do. Your past doesn't disqualify you. Your family's rejection doesn't cancel God's calling. You are chosen, even if others cast you out. Maybe you're facing a conflict right now, and you're ready to fight, but you haven't tried peace yet. You haven't sent the messengers. You haven't laid out your case. Hear this. Seek peace before war. Try understanding before attacking. Exhaust diplomatic options before resorting to conflict. Not all battles need to be fought. Not all conflicts need to escalate. Sometimes, a conversation can prevent a war. Be like Jephthah in his diplomacy. State your case. Appeal to reason. Seek resolution. And only fight when peace is truly impossible. Maybe you're in a desperate moment right now, and you're tempted to make a vow to God. If you do this, I'll do that. If you give me this, I'll give you that. Hear this. Don't. God doesn't need your bargains. He doesn't want your deals. He wants your trust. Don't make promises in desperation that you'll regret in victory. Don't obligate yourself with vows that might cost you everything. God already knows what you need. He's already decided whether to give it to you. Your vow won't change his mind, but it might change your life, and not in the way you hoped. Trust him. Don't bargain with him. Maybe you've already made a rash vow. You spoke words you shouldn't have spoken, made promises you shouldn't have made, and now you're living with the consequences. Hear this. God gives grace even in the midst of our foolishness. He gave Jephthah victory despite the vow. He works with us even when we've made terrible decisions. But grace doesn't erase consequences. Jephthah's daughter still died. The words were spoken. The vow was kept. Learn from the pain. Let it teach you wisdom. Don't make the same mistake again. And trust that God can still use you, even after your greatest failures. Maybe you're fighting with your brothers and sisters in Christ. Jealousy, insults, wounded pride, and it's escalating. Words are becoming weapons. Disagreements are becoming divisions. Hear this. Stop. Before 42,000 people die at the fords. Before the accent test becomes a death sentence. Before the body of Christ tears itself apart. Swallow your pride. Let go of the insult. Refuse to let jealousy become war. Because when God's people kill each other, the enemy doesn't have to lift a finger. Jephthah's story is one of the saddest in Judges. A man who could have been great. A deliverer who won the battle but lost what mattered most. A father whose rash words cost him his only child. He judged Israel for 6 years. But for the rest of his life, he lived with the memory of what his vow had cost. Don't let that be your story. Don't make vows you can't keep. Don't bargain with God when you should simply trust him. Don't let words spoken in desperation define the rest of your life. God uses the rejected. He delivers despite our foolishness. But rash words have consequences we can't undo. You are seen by God, even if rejected by others. You are called, even if cast out. And God is patient with your failures, even when they cost you dearly. Think before you speak. Trust instead of bargaining. And guard your words as carefully as you guard your life. For once spoken, they cannot be taken back. Episode 6. Samson, the strong man with a weak soul when God's power flows through human weakness. Welcome back. Take a deep breath. Let the quiet of this moment settle over you. We're continuing through Judges, this book that shows us the depths of human failure and the heights of God's patience. We've watched deliverer after deliverer. Gideon, who started in fear and ended in compromise. Abimelech, who murdered his brothers for a crown. Jephthah, who made a vow that cost him his daughter. And after Jephthah came 3 more minor judges, Ibzan, Elon, and Abdon. Brief mentions, quiet years, no recorded spiritual impact. And then Israel did evil again. And this time, God gave them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. 40 years, the longest oppression yet. A generation raised under Philistine domination. And unlike previous oppressions, where Israel cried out to God, this time, silence. No cry, no repentance. They seemed to have grown comfortable with compromise, content to live under oppression. But God wasn't content. So he raised up a deliverer. And this deliverer would be unlike any other in Judges. His name was Samson, and he was set apart from birth. A Nazirite, consecrated to God, forbidden to drink wine, eat anything unclean, or cut his hair. He would be the strongest man who ever lived. He would kill a lion with his bare hands, strike down 1,000 men with a donkey's jawbone, and carry off the gates of a city. But he would also be one of the weakest men in Judges. Weak when it comes to temptation. Weak when it comes to women. Weak when it came to guarding what God had given him. Tonight, we begin Samson's story. His miraculous birth. His early victories. His growing strength. Tomorrow, We'll watch him fall, betrayed by Delilah, captured by the Philistines, blinded and enslaved. But we'll also watch him rise one final time in an act of faith that would kill more enemies in his death than in his life. So settle in. Let your mind be still. Tonight we'll learn that God can use even deeply flawed people to accomplish his purposes, and that the greatest battles aren't always against external enemies, but against our own appetites. The story, a barren woman's miracle. And the people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord gave them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. 40 years, an entire generation. But unlike other oppressions, there's no record of Israel crying out. They seemed resigned to Philistine rule, accommodated, compromised. But God did not resign. There was a certain man of Zorah, of the tribe of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and had no children. Barren, the familiar pattern. Sarah was barren. Rebekah was barren. Rachel was barren. Hannah would be barren. Again and again, God works through barren wombs to show that life comes from him, not from human ability. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, "Behold, you are barren and have not borne children, but you shall conceive and bear a son." The angel of the Lord, a manifestation of God himself, appearing to an unnamed woman, announcing the impossible. Therefore be careful and drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. A Nazarite, someone set apart for God. The vow included 3 prohibitions: no wine or strong drink, no contact with anything unclean, and no cutting of hair. These were external signs of internal consecration, a visible reminder that this person belonged wholly to God. Samson would be a Nazarite from birth, not by his own choice, but by God's calling, set apart before he even drew breath. And notice the prophecy: he shall begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. Not finished, not complete, just begin. Samson would be the start of deliverance, not the end. Then the woman came and told her husband, "A man of God came to me, and his appearance was like the appearance of the angel of God, very awesome. I did not ask him where he was from, and he did not tell me his name. But he said to me, 'Behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. So then drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean. For the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death.'" She recognized this was no ordinary visitor. Very awesome, terrifying, holy, otherworldly. This was divine. Then Manoah prayed to the Lord and said, "O Lord, please let the man of God whom you sent come again to us and teach us what we ought to do with the child who will be born." Faith, humility. We need more instruction. We need to know how to raise this child. And God listened to the voice of Manoah, and the angel of God came again to the woman as she sat in the field. But Manoah, her husband, was not with her. God honored the request. The angel came again, but to the woman, not the man. God doesn't follow our cultural expectations. He speaks to whom he chooses. So the woman ran quickly and told her husband, "Behold, the man who came to me the other day has appeared to me." And Manoah arose and went after his wife and came to the man and said to him, "Are you the man who spoke to this woman?" And he said, "I am." And Manoah said, "Now when your words come true, what is to be the child's manner of life, and what is his mission?" Good questions. How should we raise him? What is he called to do? And the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "Of all that I said to the woman, let her be careful. She may not eat anything that comes from the vine, neither let her drink wine or strong drink, or eat any unclean thing. All that I commanded her, let her observe." The emphasis is striking. The mother must keep the Nazirite restrictions during pregnancy. The consecration begins even before birth. Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "Please let us detain you and prepare a young goat for you." Hospitality, an offering, but also testing. Is this really an angel? But the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "If you detain me, I will not eat of your food. But if you prepare a burnt offering, then offer it to the Lord." For Manoah did not know that he was the angel of the Lord. The angel redirects the offering from himself to God. "Don't offer to me, offer to the Lord." And Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "What is your name, so that, when your words come true, we may honor you?" And the angel of the Lord said to him, "Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful?" Wonderful. The same word is used for God's name in Isaiah 9 verse 6. His name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God. This is no mere angel. This is God himself. So Manoah took the young goat with the grain offering and offered it on the rock to the Lord, to the one who works wonders. And Manoah and his wife were watching. And when the flame went up toward heaven from the altar, the angel of the Lord went up in the flame of the altar. Now Manoah and his wife were watching, and they fell on their faces to the ground. The angel ascended in the flame, just like the offering Gideon made, fire from heaven, the angel departing in the flames. This was God. The angel of the Lord appeared no more to Manoah and to his wife. Then Manoah knew that he was the angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to his wife, "We shall surely die, for we have seen God." Fear, the ancient belief, no one can see God and live. But his wife said to him, "If the Lord had meant to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering at our hands, or shown us all these things, or now announced to us such things as these." Wisdom, logic, faith. If God wanted to kill us, he wouldn't have accepted our offering or given us these promises. And the woman bore a son and called his name Samson. And the young man grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him in Mahaneh Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. Samson, the name might mean sunny or little sun, a bright beginning. And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him, to move him, to agitate him, to awaken something inside him. This was the first sign. The Spirit was at work. God's power was beginning to manifest. Samson's Philistine wife. Samson went down to Timnah, and at Timnah he saw one of the daughters of the Philistines. Timnah, Philistine territory. And Samson saw a woman, a Philistine woman. Then he came up and told his father and mother, "I saw one of the daughters of the Philistines at Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife." Blunt, direct, demanding. "I want her. Get her for me." But his father and mother said to him, "Is there not a woman among the daughters of your relatives, or among all our people, that you must go to take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines?" A valid objection. God had commanded Israel not to intermarry with the Canaanites, and the Philistines were enemies. Why marry one of them? But Samson said to his father, "Get her from me, for she is right in my eyes. She pleases me. I want her. That's all that matters." His father and mother did not know that it was from the Lord, for he was seeking an opportunity against the Philistines. At that time the Philistines ruled over Israel. A stunning statement. God was orchestrating this, not because intermarriage was good, it wasn't, but because God was using Samson's desires to create conflict with the Philistines. God can use even our wrong desires to accomplish his purposes, not because the desires are right, but because he's sovereign. Then Samson went down with his father and mother to Timnah, and they came to the vineyards of Timnah. And behold, a young lion came toward him roaring. A lion, a deadly threat. Samson was unarmed, alone, vulnerable. Then the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and although he had nothing in his hand, he tore the lion in pieces as one tears a young goat. Supernatural strength. The Spirit came upon him, and he killed a lion with his bare hands. Like tearing paper. Effortless. Overwhelming power. But he did not tell his father or his mother what he had done. Silence. Humility. Or perhaps secrecy. Samson kept this to himself. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and she was right in Samson's eyes. Right in his eyes. The phrase echoes the refrain of Judges. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. Samson was following his own desires, not God's commands. After some days he returned to take her, and he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion. And behold, there was a swarm of bees in the body of the lion, and honey. Bees, honey, in the carcass of a dead lion. He scraped it out into his hands and went on, eating as he went. And he came to his father and mother and gave some to them, and they ate. But he did not tell them that he had scraped the honey from the carcass of the lion. Violation. A Nazirite was forbidden to touch anything dead. Samson not only touched the carcass, he ate from it, and gave it to his parents without telling them. The first compromise. The first crack in his consecration. The wedding riddle. His father went down to the woman, and Samson prepared a feast there, for so the young men used to do. A wedding feast. 7 days of celebration. As soon as the people saw him, they brought 30 companions to be with him. 30 Philistine men. Not friends. More like gods. The Philistines didn't trust Samson, and Samson said to them, "Let me now put a riddle to you. If you can tell me what it is, within the 7 days of the feast, and find it out, then I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes. But if you cannot tell me what it is, then you shall give me 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes." A wager. A riddle. High stakes. And they said to him, "Put your riddle, that we may hear it." And he said to them, "Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. The lion. The honey. A riddle based on his personal experience. Impossible for anyone else to solve. And in 3 days they could not solve the riddle. They were stumped. Frustrated. Losing face. On the 4th day they said to Samson's wife, "Entice your husband to tell us what the riddle is, lest we burn you and your father's house with fire. Have you invited us here to impoverish us?" Threats. Violence. Intimidation. They pressured her to betray her husband. And Samson's wife wept over him and said, "You only hate me. You do not love me. You have put a riddle to my people, and you have not told me what it is." Manipulation. Tears. Emotional pressure. And he said to her, "Behold, I have not told my father nor my mother, and shall I tell you?" A fair point. I haven't even told my own parents. Why would I tell you? She wept before him the 7 days that their feast lasted. And on the 7th day he told her, because she pressed him hard. 7 days of weeping. 7 days of manipulation. And Samson broke. He told her. Then she told the riddle to her people. Betrayal. She gave the answer to the Philistines. And the men of the city said to him on the 7th day before the sun went down, "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" They had the answer, but only because of treachery. And he said to them, "If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have found out my riddle." A crude metaphor. You used my wife to get the answer. You cheated. Then the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon and struck down 30 men of the town and took their spoil and gave the garments to those who had told the riddle. Fury. Violence. The Spirit came upon him, not for righteous war, but to fuel his rage. He killed 30 men to pay his debt. In hot anger he went back to his father's house, and his wife was given to his companion, who had been his best man. Betrayal compounded. While he was gone, they gave his wife to another man. The marriage was over before it began. Samson's revenge. After some days, at the time of wheat harvest, Samson went to visit his wife with a young goat. And he said, "I will go into my wife in the chamber." He returned. Anger cooled. He wanted to reconcile, but her father would not allow him to go in. And her father said, "I really thought that you utterly hated her, so I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister more beautiful than she? Please take her instead." Insult. Replacement. Take the younger one instead. As if wives were interchangeable commodities. And Samson said to them, "This time I shall be innocent in regard to the Philistines, when I do them harm." Justification. I'm not the aggressor. They wrong me. Now I'm going to respond. So Samson went and caught 300 foxes and took torches. And he turned them tail to tail and put a torch between each pair of tails. And when he had set fire to the torches, he let the foxes go into the standing grain of the Philistines and set fire to the shocks and the standing grain, as well as the olive orchards. Creative destruction. 300 foxes with torches tied between their tails, running through Philistine fields, vineyards, and olive groves. The harvest, their food supply for the year, destroyed. Then the Philistines said, "Who has done this?" And they said, "Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he has taken his wife and given her to his companion." They knew who did it, and they knew why. And the Philistines came up and burned her and her father with fire. Brutal retaliation. They killed the woman Samson had married and her father, the very people who had betrayed Samson. And Samson said to them, "If this is what you do, I swear I will be avenged on you, and after that I will quit." Escalation. Violence breeding more violence. The cycle continuing. And he struck them hip and thigh with a great blow. And he went down and stayed in the cleft of the rock of Etam. Hip and thigh, a phrase meaning complete slaughter. Samson killed many Philistines in a rage, then fled to a cave, bound and delivered. Then the Philistines came up and encamped in Judah and made a raid on Lehi. The Philistines invaded Judah, looking for Samson, ready to punish Israel for what he'd done. And the men of Judah said, "Why have you come up against us?" They said, "We have come up to bind Samson, to do to him as he did to us." Judah was caught in the middle. They didn't want war with the Philistines. They just wanted peace. Then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cleft of the rock of Etam and said to Samson, "Do you not know that the Philistines are rulers over us? What then is this that you have done to us?" Accusation. Resentment. We're comfortable with oppression. Why are you stirring up trouble? This is the tragedy of long oppression. Israel had grown so used to Philistine rule that they viewed Samson, the deliverer, as the problem. And he said to them, "As they did to me, so have I done to them." Justice. Retribution. They wronged me first. And they said to him, "We have come down to bind you, that we may give you into the hands of the Philistines." Betrayal. His own people, ready to hand him over to the enemy. And Samson said to them, "Swear to me that you will not attack me yourselves." Negotiation. "I'll let you bind me, but promise you won't kill me." They said to him, "No, we will only bind you and give you into their hands. We will surely not kill you." So they bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. Trust. Surrender. Samson let his own people tie him up and hand him over. When he came to Lehi, the Philistines came shouting to meet him. Then the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and the ropes that were on his arms became like flax that has caught fire, and his bonds melted off his hands. The Spirit came upon him. The ropes burned away like thread. Supernatural strength unleashed. And he found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, and put out his hand and took it, and with it he struck 1,000 men. A jawbone, not a sword, not a spear, the bone of a dead donkey. And with it, Samson killed 1,000 Philistines. And Samson said, "With the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps, With the jawbone of a donkey I have struck down 1,000 men. A victory song, a taunt, celebrating the slaughter. When he had finished speaking, he threw the jawbone out of his hand, and that place was called Ramath Lehi, Jawbone Hill, a memorial to the battle. And he was very thirsty, and he called upon the Lord and said, "You have given this great salvation by the hand of your servant, and shall I now die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised?" Desperation, exhaustion. Samson cried out to God, not in repentance, not in worship, but in need. And God split open the hollow place that is at Lehi, and water came out from it. And when he drank, his spirit returned, and he revived. Provision, grace. Even when Samson's motives were mixed, even when he was driven by revenge more than righteousness, God sustained him. Therefore the name of it was called En Hakor. It is at Lehi to this day, the spring of the caller, a reminder that God hears even when we call from impure motives. And he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years. 20 years. Samson led Israel for 2 decades, not as a conqueror who drove out the enemy completely, but as a disruptor who began the process of deliverance. The meaning. Samson's story so far reveals profound truths about God's power and human weakness. God uses flawed people. Samson was consecrated from birth, set apart as a Nazirite, empowered by God's Spirit, and yet he was deeply flawed. He violated his Nazirite vow by touching a dead lion. He married a Philistine woman against his parents' advice. He was driven by lust, anger, and revenge. He killed in rage more often than in obedience, and yet God used him. The Spirit came upon him repeatedly. God gave him supernatural strength. God accomplished his purposes through this broken vessel. This is grace. God doesn't wait for us to be perfect before he uses us. He works through cracked pots, flawed instruments, broken people. Consecration is about belonging, not performance. Samson was a Nazirite from birth. He didn't own it. He didn't choose it. God set him apart before he could make any vows of his own. This is true for every believer. You're consecrated, set apart, not because of what you do, but because of who God is. You belong to him, not because you're good enough, but because he chose you. Samson violated his vow. He touched dead things. He broke his consecration repeatedly, but he was still a Nazirite, because God had called him one. God's power doesn't depend on human holiness. The Spirit came upon Samson to kill 30 men in Ashkelon when he was paying off a bet. The Spirit came upon him at Lehi when he was killed out of revenge. This is uncomfortable. We want to believe God's power only flows through holy people for holy purposes. But Samson's story shows that God's power can flow through unholy people for God's purposes. God is sovereign. He uses even flawed obedience, mixed motives, and imperfect vessels to accomplish his will. But, and this is crucial, that doesn't mean the vessel escapes consequences. Samson had power, but he also had pain. Strength, but also slavery. Victory, but also defeat. God's power doesn't sanctify sin. It accomplishes God's purposes despite sin. Compromise begins small. Samson touched the dead lion, just once, then ate honey from it, then gave it to his parents without telling them. Small compromises, little violations, but they set a pattern. If the Nazirite vow can be broken in small ways, it can be broken in big ways. If consecration can be compromised once, it can be compromised again. This is how sin works. It starts small, a touch, a taste, a glance, and it grows, until eventually, you're giving your secrets to Delilah and waking up powerless. Comfortable oppression is still oppression. Israel had grown so accustomed to Philistine rule that they viewed Samson as the problem. Why are you stirring up trouble? We're fine with how things are. This is the danger of long oppression. You get used to it. You adjust. You accommodate. And eventually, you resent anyone who disrupts the status quo, even if they're trying to set you free. Sometimes the deliverer is unwelcome because people have made peace with their chains. God provides even when we ask from wrong motives. Samson cried out for water not because he was repenting, but because he was thirsty. Not because he wanted to worship God, but because he didn't want to die. And God gave him water anyway. This is grace. God provides even when we ask from selfish motives. He sustains even when we're not seeking Him purely. He gives even when we don't deserve it. Not because He approves of our motives, but because He's merciful. Strength without character is dangerous. Samson was the strongest man who ever lived, but he was one of the weakest when it came to self-control. He could kill a lion but couldn't resist a woman. He could defeat 1,000 men but couldn't guard his own tongue. Physical strength is not the same as spiritual strength. Power is not the same as character. And strength without wisdom, without self-control, without holiness is dangerous. You can have God's power and still destroy yourself. Reflection. Take a slow breath. Let these truths settle deep. Maybe you're like Samson, consecrated to God from birth, set apart, called to something special. But you've been compromising. Little violations, small sins, touches of things you shouldn't touch, tastes of what you shouldn't eat. Hear this. Consecration is not about perfection. It's about belonging. You are set apart because God called you, not because you've never failed. But compromise has consequences. The small violations set a pattern. If you don't guard your consecration in little things, you won't guard it in big things. Stop now. Turn back. Don't let the small compromises grow into the big betrayals. Maybe you're living in comfortable oppression. You've grown so used to sin, so accommodated to dysfunction, so adjusted to spiritual compromise, that you resent anyone who challenges the status quo. Hear this. Just because you're comfortable doesn't mean you're free. Just because you've adjusted doesn't mean it's right. Just because it's been this way for 40 years doesn't mean it should stay this way. Samson was trying to set Israel free, and they handed him over to the Philistines because they preferred oppression to disruption. Don't be like them. Don't resent the deliverer. Welcome to freedom, even if it's uncomfortable. Embrace the change, even if it's disruptive. Maybe you're powerful but not holy. Like Samson, you have gifts, talents, abilities, influence, strength. God is using you. The Spirit comes upon you. You see results, but your private life is a mess. Your character doesn't match your calling. Your power isn't backed by purity. Hear this. God's power flowing through you doesn't mean God approves of how you're living. It means God is accomplishing His purposes despite your flaws. But don't mistake grace for permission. Don't confuse God using you with God being pleased with you. Strength without character will eventually destroy you. Samson had power for 20 years, but he was heading toward a fall that would cost him his eyes, his freedom, and nearly his life. Build character. Guard your heart. Cultivate holiness. Because power without purity is a ticking time bomb. Maybe you're calling out to God from wrong motives. Not because you want to worship Him, but because you need something. Not because you love Him, but because you're desperate. Hear this. God still hears. He provided water for Samson even when Samson's cry was selfish. He gives grace even when we don't deserve it. But don't stay there. Don't let your relationship with God be only about what He can do for you. Move from selfish prayer to worship, from asking to adoring, from need to love. God will meet you in your need, but He wants to lead you into a relationship. The story of Samson is a warning. You can have God's power and still lose everything. You can be set apart and still compromise. You can win battles and still destroy yourself. Samson killed 1,000 men with a jawbone, but he couldn't kill his own appetites. He tore apart a lion but couldn't tear himself away from temptation. He had supernatural strength but natural weakness. And that combination, power with no self-control, would lead to his greatest tragedy. God uses flawed people. His power flows through cracked vessels. And even when you fail, God doesn't abandon you. We'll watch Samson fall. Delilah. Betrayal. The secret was revealed. Haircut. Strength gone. Eyes gouged out. Grinding grain like an animal. The mighty man was reduced to slavery. But we'll also watch him rise one final time. Hair growing back. Faith returning. And in one final act of strength, Samson will kill more Philistines in his death than in his entire life. You are consecrated. You belong to God. And even in your weakness, God can work through you. Guard what God has given you. Build character to match your calling. And don't let small compromises become big falls. For the strongest man who ever lived fell because he couldn't control his own desires. Learn from his story. Before you repeat it, Episode 7, Samson, Delilah and Destruction when the strong fall and rise again. Welcome back. Take a deep breath. Let the weight of the day dissolve. We're continuing through Judges, and tonight we come to one of the most famous and tragic stories in all of Scripture. Last time, we watched Samson grow from a miraculous birth to a mighty warrior. We saw the Spirit come upon him again and again, giving him supernatural strength. We watched him kill a lion with his bare hands, strike down 1,000 Philistines with a jawbone, and judge Israel for 20 years. But we also saw the cracks, the compromises, the violations of his Nazirite vow, the inability to resist temptation, the pattern of pursuing Philistine women, the strength in his body but weakness in his soul. Tonight, those cracks become a chasm. Tonight, Samson meets Delilah, and through her persistent questioning, through his foolish answers, through his final betrayal of the secret he should have guarded with his life, tonight, the strongest man who ever lived becomes blind, enslaved, and powerless. But this isn't just a story about falling. It's also a story about rising one final time, about hair growing back, about faith returning, about a man who, in his moment of greatest weakness, cried out to God one last time and accomplished more in his death than in his entire life. This is the end of Samson's story, and it teaches us that even our worst failures aren't final if we turn back to God. Even when we've lost everything, God can still use us. Even when we're blind and broken and grinding grain in a prison, God hears our cry. So settle in. Let your mind be still. Tonight we learn that the greatest strength isn't in our muscles. It's in our surrender to God. The story. Gaza, Samson's close call. Samson went to Gaza, and there he saw a prostitute, and he went into her. Gaza, a Philistine city, and Samson, the judge of Israel, visits a prostitute. The pattern continued, pursuing Philistine women, giving into his appetites, using his strength but not his wisdom. The Gazettes were told, Samson has come here. And they surrounded the place and set an ambush for him all night at the gate of the city. They kept quiet all night, saying, "Let us wait till the light of the morning, then we will kill him." A trap. They knew he was inside. They surrounded the city gates. They waited through the night, planning to kill him at dawn when he tried to leave. But Samson lay till midnight, and at midnight he arose and took hold of the doors of the gate of the city and the two posts, and pulled them up, bar and all, and put them on his shoulders and carried them to the top of the hill that is in front of Hebron. Supernatural strength. Samson didn't sneak out. He didn't hide. He ripped the city gates, massive wooden doors, posts, bar and all, right out of the ground, lifted them onto his shoulders, and carried them 40 miles to the top of a hill near Hebron. An act of defiance, a demonstration of power, a taunt to the Philistines. Your gates can't hold me. Your traps can't catch me. I'm unstoppable. But he was wrong. He wasn't unstoppable. Because the enemy that would defeat him wasn't outside. It was inside. His own appetites, his own weakness, his own inability to guard his heart. Delilah, the woman in the valley. After this he loved a woman in the valley of Sork, whose name was Delilah. Delilah, the name might mean delicate or weak. But there was nothing weak about her cunning. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, Seduce him, and see where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to humble him. And we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver, a massive bribe, 1,100 pieces of silver from each of the 5 Philistine lords, 5,500 pieces total. An enormous sum. Delilah's price to betray Samson. Notice, they didn't ask her to kill him, just to discover his secret, to find out where his strength came from. They wanted to bind him, to humble him, to break him without killing him. So Delilah said to Samson, Please tell me where your great strength lies, and how you might be bound, that one could subdue you. Direct, bold, tell me your secret. Samson said to her, If they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, then I shall become weak and be like any other man. A lie, a game. Samson wasn't going to tell her the truth, yet. He was playing with her. Then the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried, and she bound him with them. Now she had men lying in ambush in an inner chamber. The trap was set. Delilah bound him with the bowstrings, while Philistine soldiers hid in the next room, ready to capture him. And she said to him, The Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he snapped the bowstrings, as a thread of flax snapped when it touched the fire. So the secret of his strength was not known. Samson broke free easily. The bowstrings snapped like thread. He was still strong. The secret was still safe. Then Delilah said to Samson, Behold, you have mocked me and told me lies. Please tell me how you might be bound. Accusation, hurt, manipulation. You lied to me. Tell me the truth. And he said to her, If they bind me with new ropes that have not been used, then I shall become weak and be like any other man. Another lie, another game. Samson still wasn't taking this seriously. So Delilah took new ropes and bound him with them and said to him, The Philistines are upon you, Samson. And the men lying in ambush were in an inner chamber. But he snapped the ropes off his arms like a thread. Again, easy escape. The ropes broke. Samson was still playing games, still confident he couldn't be caught. Then Delilah said to Samson, Until now you have mocked me and told me lies. Tell me how you might be bound. Third time, more pressure, more manipulation. Tell me. And he said to her, If you weave the 7 locks of my head with the web and fasten it tight with the pin, then I shall become weak and be like any other man. Closer to the truth. He's talking about his hair now, not the real secret, but getting dangerously close. So while he slept, Delilah took the 7 locks of his head and wove them into the web, and she made them tight with a pin and said to him, The Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he awoke from his sleep and pulled away the pin, the loom, and the web. Still strong, still safe. But the pattern was clear. Samson was giving her more information each time, moving closer to the truth, toying with danger. And she said to him, How can you say, I love you, when your heart is not with me? You have mocked me these 3 times, and you have not told me where your great strength lies. Emotional manipulation. If you loved me, you'd tell me. The classic guilt trip, the weapon of choice for those who want to extract secrets. And when she pressed him hard with her words day after day, and urged him, his soul was vexed to death. Day after day, constant pressure, nagging, questioning, accusing, wearing him down. His soul was vexed to death, tormented, exhausted, overwhelmed. Why didn't Samson just leave? Why stay in a relationship that was clearly dangerous, clearly manipulative, clearly destructive? Because he was enslaved by his appetites. Because lust overpowered wisdom. Because he couldn't walk away from what he wanted, even when he knew it would destroy him. And he told her all his heart, and said to her, "A razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazirite to God from my mother's womb. If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man." The secret, the truth, the one thing he should never have told anyone. I'm a Nazirite. My hair is the sign of my consecration. If it's cut, my strength will leave me. Samson finally surrendered the secret, not because he trusted Delilah. He should have known by now she would betray him, but because he was worn down, exhausted, unable to resist the constant pressure. When Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called the lords of the Philistines, saying, "Come up again, for he has told me all his heart." Then the lords of the Philistines came up to her and brought the money in their hands. The trap was ready. The silver was paid. Delilah had what she needed. She made him sleep on her knees, and she called a man and had him shave off the 7 locks of his head. Then she began to torment him, and his strength left him. While Samson slept, trusting her, vulnerable, she had his hair cut. The sign of his consecration, gone. The mark of his separation to God, removed. And his strength left him, not because there was magic in the hair, but because the hair represented his covenant with God. When he violated that covenant, when he let it be violated, God's empowering presence departed. And she said, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." The same word she'd said 3 times before, but this time it was real. And he awoke from his sleep and said, "I will go out as at other times and shake myself free." But he did not know that the Lord had left him. The most tragic sentence in Samson's story. He did not know that the Lord had left him. Samson assumed he was still strong. He expected to break free, like always. He thought nothing had changed, but everything had changed. God's presence was gone. The power was gone. The strength was gone. And the Philistines seized him and gouged out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza and bound him with bronze shackles. And he ground to the mill in the prison, captured, blinded, enslaved. The mighty warrior reduced to grinding grain like an animal. The judge of Israel, now a prisoner in Gaza, the very city whose gates he had once carried away. The strongest man who ever lived, now blind and powerless, walking in circles in a Philistine prison. But the hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. Hope, small, quiet, unnoticed by the Philistines. But his hair was growing back. The sign of his consecration was returning. The final act. Now the lords of the Philistines gathered to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon their god and to rejoice. And they said, "Our God has given Samson, our enemy, into our hand." A celebration, a religious festival, worshipping Dagon, crediting their false god with Samson's capture. And when the people saw him, they praised their God. For they said, "Our God has given our enemy into our hand, the ravager of our country, who has killed many of us." Samson on display, paraded before his enemies. A trophy, proof that Dagon was stronger than Yahweh. And when their hearts were merry, they said, "Call Samson, that he may entertain us." So they called Samson out of the prison, and he entertained them. They made him stand between the pillars. Entertainment. They wanted to mock him, to humiliate him, to make him perform like a trained animal. And Samson said to the young man who held him by the hand, "Let me feel the pillars on which the house rests, that I may lean against them." Positioning. Strategy. Samson asked to be placed between the 2 main support pillars of the building. Now the house was full of men and women. All the lords of the Philistines were there. And on the roof there were about 3,000 men and women who looked on while Samson entertained. 3,000 on the roof alone, plus however many inside. The Philistine leadership and thousands of their people all gathered to celebrate Samson's defeat. Then Samson called to the Lord and said, "O Lord God, please remember me and please strengthen me only this once, O God, that I may be avenged on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." Prayer. Desperate. Honest. Remember me. Strengthen me one more time. Not forgive me. Not I'm sorry for my sin. Just let me have revenge for what they've done to me. Imperfect prayer. Mixed motives. But still, prayer. After all his failures, after all his compromises, after being blinded and enslaved, Samson finally turned back to God. And God heard. And Samson grasped the 2 middle pillars on which the house rested, and he leaned his weight against them, his right hand on the one and his left hand on the other. 2 pillars, the main supports. If they fell, the whole building would collapse. And Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." Sacrifice. Surrender. Samson wasn't trying to escape. He was choosing to die, taking his enemies with him. Then he bowed with all his strength, and the house fell upon the lords and upon all the people who were in it. The pillars gave way. The roof collapsed. The building came crashing down. So the dead whom he killed at his death were more than those whom he had killed during his life. In one final act, Samson killed more Philistines than in all his previous battles combined. 3,000 on the roof, the lords of the Philistines inside, all crushed in the collapse. The strongest man who ever lived died blind, enslaved, and buried under rubble. But he died in an act of faith, crying out to God, trusting that God would hear. And God did. Then his brothers and all his family came down and took him and brought him up and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of Manoah his father. His family came. They retrieved his body. They buried him with honor in his father's tomb. He had judged Israel for 20 years. 20 years of leadership. 20 years of beginning to deliver Israel from the Philistines. Not finishing the job. Not completing the deliverance. But it is the beginning it. And in the very last moment of his life, through one final prayer, through one final act of strength, through one final act of faith, Samson struck the greatest blow against the enemy he'd ever struck. The meaning. Samson's full and final rise teach us profound truths about strength, weakness, and the mercy of God. Playing with temptation always leads to falling. Samson didn't tell Delilah the truth immediately. He lied 3 times. He played games. He thought he could toy with danger without consequences. But each lie brought him closer to the truth. Each game weakened his resolve. And finally, worn down by constant pressure, he gave up the secret. This is how temptation works. You think you can play with it, flirt with it, get close but not too close. But every time you engage, you weaken your defenses. Every time you play the game, you move closer to falling. The only way to win is not to play. Don't engage with temptation. Don't entertain it. Don't see how close you can get to the edge. Run. Flee. Get out. Emotional manipulation is a powerful weapon. Delilah didn't use physical force. She used words. How can you say you love me when you won't tell me? Day after day. Pressure. Guilt. Manipulation. And it worked. Samson, who could break ropes and lift gates, couldn't resist emotional pressure. Be careful who you give emotional access to. Some people will use your love, your desire for approval, your need for affection as weapons to manipulate and control you. If someone is pressuring you to compromise, to violate your convictions, to share what you shouldn't share, that's not love. That's manipulation, and you need to walk away. You can lose God's presence without realizing it. He did not know that the Lord had left him. Samson assumed he was still strong. He expected to break free. like always. But the power was gone, and he didn't know it until it was too late. This is terrifying. You can lose God's empowering presence through gradual compromise, through repeated sin, through violating your consecration, and not realize it until you're captured and blind. Guard your relationship with God. Don't assume His presence is always there just because it was there before. Pay attention. Stay close. Don't let sin create distance you don't notice until it's too late. Consecration violated leads to strength departed. Samson's strength wasn't in his hair. It was in his covenant relationship with God. The hair was just the sign. When he violated his Nazirite vow, touching dead things, giving into lust, and finally allowing his hair to be cut, he broke covenant with God, and God's empowering presence left. You can't live in persistent, unrepentant sin and expect God's power to keep flowing. You can't violate your consecration and maintain your strength. God is gracious. He's patient. But there comes a point where continued rebellion leads to departed presence, where repeated compromise leads to lost power. The consequences of sin are real and painful. Samson's sin cost him his eyes, his freedom, and his dignity. He went from judging Israel to grinding grain in a prison. Sin has consequences. Always. You reap what you sow, and sometimes those consequences are permanent. Samson never got his eyes back. He died blind. God forgives. God restores. But sometimes the consequences remain. Don't assume you can sin without cost. The price is always higher than you think. God hears even imperfect prayers. Samson's final prayer wasn't a prayer of repentance. It wasn't forgive me for my sin. It was let me get revenge for my eyes. Mixed motives, imperfect faith, selfish desire mixed with trust in God. And God answered anyway. This is grace. God doesn't wait for your prayers to be perfect before He listens. He hears you even when your motives are mixed, even when your faith is weak, even when you're crying out from a prison you put yourself in. God heard Samson, and He gave him strength one more time. Failure is not final if you turn back to God. Samson failed, repeatedly, spectacularly. He violated every part of his Nazirite vow. He gave into lust, to pride, to revenge. He ended up blind and enslaved. But in the final moment, he turned back to God. He prayed. He asked for strength, and God gave it. Hebrews 11 lists Samson among the heroes of faith, not because he lived perfectly, but because in the end, he trusted God. Your failure is not final. Your fall is not the end of your story. If you turn back to God, even from prison, even blind, even after losing everything, He will hear you. He will use you. He will give you strength one more time. Reflection. Take a slow breath. Let these truths sink deep. Maybe you're playing with temptation right now. Like Samson with Delilah, you're flirting with danger. You think you can handle it. You think you're strong enough to get close without falling. Hear this, you're not. Every time you engage, you weaken. Every time you play the game, you move closer to giving up the secret. Every time you think, just this once, you're one step closer to capture. Stop playing. Stop testing. Stop seeing how close you can get to the edge. Run. Flee. Get out. Because the strength you think you have isn't as strong as you think. Maybe someone is manipulating you emotionally, pressuring you to compromise. Like Delilah pressuring Samson. If you loved me, you'd tell me. Day after day. Constant pressure, wearing you down. Hear this, that's not love. That's control. If someone uses your affection as leverage to get you to violate your convictions, to share what you shouldn't share, to do what you know is wrong, walk away. You are not responsible for managing their emotions. You are responsible for guarding your consecration. And if staying in that relationship requires compromising your relationship with God, the relationship needs to end. Maybe you've been compromising gradually. Small violations, little sins, and you still feel strong. You still see God working. You still have success. But you're like Samson saying, I will go out as at other times, assuming God's presence is still there because it was there before. Hear this. Check. Examine yourself. Are you still close to God? Is His presence still real in your life? Or have you drifted so gradually that you don't realize how far you've gone? Don't wait until you're captured and blind to realize God's presence had left. Turn back now. Repent now. Restore the relationship before the crisis comes. Maybe you're already captured, already blind, already grinding grain in a prison of your own making. You've lost everything: your strength, your freedom, your dignity. You feel like you've fallen too far, failed too completely, lost too much. Hear this. God still hears, even from prison, even blind, even after spectacular failure. Samson cried out, and God answered. Your hair is growing back. Your strength can return. God is not done with you. The question is, will you pray? Will you turn back to God? Will you admit you need Him? Or will you die in the prison, never crying out, never asking for one more chance? Samson struck his greatest blow in his moment of greatest weakness, because he finally, after everything, turned back to God. Maybe your prayer won't be perfect. Maybe your motives will be mixed. Maybe you're not praying out of pure love for God, but out of desperation, out of need, out of a desire for revenge against your enemies. Pray anyway. God heard Samson's imperfect prayer. He'll hear yours too. The story of Samson is a warning and a hope. A warning that sin has consequences, that playing with temptation leads to falling, that you can lose God's presence without realizing it, that strength without character will eventually destroy you. But it's also a hope, that God uses flawed people, that failure is not final, that even after you've lost everything, God will hear your cry, that in your moment of greatest weakness, if you turn to Him, He can give you strength one more time. Samson is listed in Hebrews 11 as a hero of faith, not because he lived perfectly, not because he never fell, but because in the end, despite everything, he trusted God. And God answered. God hears your cry, even from prison. Your failure is not final. And if you turn back to Him, God can give you strength one more time. We'll move into the darkest chapters of Judges. Micah's idol, the Danites' apostasy, the Levites' concubine, civil war. The book that began with incomplete conquest will end in complete chaos. And we'll understand why. When everyone does what is right in their own eyes, society collapses. You are consecrated to God. Even if you violated your vow, He can restore you. Even if you're blind and enslaved, He hears your prayer. Close your eyes. Guard your consecration. Flee temptation. And if you've fallen, cry out. Because God gave Samson strength one more time, and He can do the same for you. Episode 8. When everyone did what was right, the collapse into chaos. Welcome back. Take a deep breath. Let the stillness settle over you. Tonight, we come to the final chapters of Judges, and I need to warn you, these are the darkest, most disturbing chapters in the entire book. We've watched the cycle repeat throughout Judges. Sin, oppression, crying out, deliverance, and then deepest sin. We've seen flawed deliverers, Gideon, Jephthah, Samson, men who won battles but couldn't conquer their own weaknesses. But those were stories about individuals. Tonight, we're going to see what happens to an entire society when there's no moral center, when there's no king, when there's no spiritual leadership, when everyone does what is right in their own eyes. Tonight, we meet Micah, a man who steals from his mother, then uses the silver to make idols. We watch the tribe of Dan abandon their God-given territory and steal someone else's land and their gods. we witness one of the most horrific acts of violence in Scripture: a Levite's concubine abused to death, her body dismembered and sent throughout Israel. And we watch the nation descend into civil war, with one tribe nearly exterminated. This is not a comfortable bedtime story, but it's Scripture, and it's here for a reason, to show us what happens when moral relativism reigns. When personal preference replaces divine law, when everyone becomes their own authority. The refrain echoes throughout these chapters. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. This is the end result. This is where that path leads. Not to freedom, to chaos. Not to enlightenment, to darkness. Not to progress, to collapse. So settle in. We'll walk through this darkness together, and we'll learn why God's law, God's authority, God's way, is not restrictive but protective, not limiting but life-giving. The story: Micah's idol and private religion. There was a man of the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Micah. The story begins simply. A man named Micah. His name means, "Who is like Yahweh?" a name that honored God. But his actions were dishing at everything that name stood for. And he said to his mother, "The 1,100 pieces of silver that were taken from you, about which you uttered a curse, and also spoke it in my ears. Behold, the silver is with me. I took it." Confession. Micah had stolen from his mother 1,100 pieces of silver, a massive sum, the same amount each Philistine lord paid Delilah to betray Samson. And his mother said, "Blessed be my son by the Lord." No rebuke, no discipline, no "how dare you steal from me." Just, "Blessed be my son." Dysfunction at the family level. Sin minimized. Theft excused. Wrong called right. And he restored the 1,100 pieces of silver to his mother. And his mother said, "I dedicate the silver to the Lord from my hand for my son, to make a carved image and a metal image. Now therefore I will restore it to you." Breathtaking irony. She's going to dedicate this stolen silver to the Lord by making idols. Images explicitly forbidden by the second commandment. She thinks she's being religious, but she's violating the most basic command. You shall not make for yourself a carved image. So when he restored the money to his mother took 200 pieces of silver and gave it to the silversmith, who made it into a carved image and a metal image. And it was in the house of Micah. Only 200 out of the 1,100. She kept most of it. Even her dedication to the Lord was half-hearted and dishonest. And the man Micah had a shrine, and he made an ephod and household gods, and ordained one of his sons, who became his priest. Private religion. Micah created his own worship system, his own shrine, his own ephod, like Gideon's, his own household gods, his own priest, not from the tribe of Levi, not ordained by God, just his own son. Do-it-yourself spirituality. Worship on his own terms, in his own way, with his own priest, honoring his own gods. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. The refrain. The explanation. This is what happens when there's no authority, no standard, no law higher than personal preference. Now there was a young man of Bethlehem in Judah, of the family of Judah, who was a Levite, and he sojourned there. A Levite, from the tribe set apart for priestly service. But he was wandering, looking for work, far from his calling. And the man departed from the town of Bethlehem in Judah to sojourn where he could find a place. And as he journeyed, he came to the hill country of Ephraim, to the house of Micah. A job search, a professional priest looking for employment. And Micah said to him, "Where do you come from?" And he said to him, "I am a Levite of Bethlehem in Judah, and I am going to sojourn where I may find a place." And Micah said to him, "Stay with me, and be to me a father and a priest." and I will give you 10 pieces of silver a year and a suit of clothes in your living. A salary, benefits, security. Micah hired a priest like hiring a contractor, and the Levite went in. And the Levite was content to dwell with the man, and the young man became to him like one of his sons. The Levite agreed. He sold his calling for 10 pieces of silver and a suit of clothes. He served idols instead of the true God. And Micah ordained the Levite, and the young man became his priest and was in the house of Micah. Then Micah said, "Now I know that the Lord will prosper me, because I have a Levite as priest." Twisted logic. Superstition masquerading as faith. Micah thought having a Levite as his priest would guarantee God's blessing, even though everything about his worship was wrong. He had the right tribe serving the wrong God in the wrong place with the wrong purpose, and he thought God would bless it. The Danites steal a priest and idols. In those days there was no king in Israel, and in those days the tribe of the Danites was seeking for itself an inheritance to dwell in, for until then no inheritance among the tribes of Israel had fallen to them. The tribe of Dan, given territory along the coast by Joshua, but they had failed to drive out the inhabitants. The Amorites had pressed them back into the hills. So now, Dan was looking for easier land to conquer, someone else's land. So the people of Dan sent 5 able men from the whole number of their tribe, from Zorah and from Eshtaol, to spy out the land and to explore it. Spies, just like Moses sent into Canaan. But this time, they weren't entering the promised land. They were abandoning it. And they came to the hill country of Ephraim, to the house of Micah, and lodged there. When they were by the house of Micah, they recognized the voice of the young Levite. And they turned aside and said to him, "Who brought you here? What are you doing in this place? What is your business here?" They recognized his accent, his voice. He wasn't from this region. "What are you doing here?" And he said to them, "This is how Micah dealt with me. He has hired me, and I have become his priest." Honest answer. He hired me. I work for him now. And they said to him, "Inquire of God, please, that we may know whether the journey on which we are setting out will succeed." They wanted divine guidance, using the wrong priest, at the wrong shrine, serving the wrong gods, but expecting the true God to bless their mission. And the priest said to them, "Go in peace. The journey on which you go is under the eye of the Lord." A false prophecy. God wasn't watching over this mission, but the Levite told them what they wanted to hear. Then the 5 men departed and came to Laish and saw the people who were there, how they lived in security, after the manner of the Sidonians, quiet and unsuspecting, lacking nothing that is in the earth and possessing wealth, and how they were far from the Sidonians and had no dealings with anyone. A peaceful, wealthy, undefended city, easy prey. And when they came back to their brothers at Zorah and Eshtaol, their brothers said to them, "What do you report?" They said, "Arise, and let us go up against them, for we have seen the land, and behold, it is very good. And will you do nothing? Do not be slow to go, to enter in and possess the land. As soon as you go, you will come to an unsuspecting people. The land is spacious, for God has given it into your hands, a place where there is no lack of anything that is in the earth. God has given it into your hands." But God had already given Dan territory. They were abandoning what God gave them to steal from someone else. So 600 men of the tribe of Dan, armed with weapons of war, set out from Zorah and Eshtaol, an army, 600 armed men, not to conquer Philistines or Canaanites, to attack a peaceful, unsuspecting people. And they came to the house of Micah. Then the 5 men who had gone to scout out the country of Laish said to their brothers, "Do you know that in these houses there are an ephod, household gods, a carved image, and a metal image? Now therefore consider what you will do." An opportunity, religious artifacts they could steal, And they turned aside there and came to the house of the young Levite, at the home of Micah, and asked him about his welfare. Now the 600 men of the Danites, armed with their weapons of war, stood by the entrance of the gate. Overwhelming force. 600 armed men at the gate, while 5 went inside. And the 5 men who had gone to scout out the land went up and entered and took the carved image, the ephod, the household gods, and the metal image, while the priests stood by the entrance of the gate with the 600 men armed with weapons of war. Theft. Brazenly stealing religious objects while armed men held everyone hostage. And when these went into Micah's house and took the carved image, the ephod, the household gods, and the metal image, the priest said to them, "What are you doing?" Weak protest. Not stop. This is wrong. Just, what are you doing? And they said to him, "Keep quiet. Put your hand on your mouth. Come with us and be to us a father and a priest. Is it better for you to be priest to the house of one man, or to be priest to a tribe and clan in Israel?" A promotion, a career advancement. Why serve one household when you could serve a whole tribe? And the priest's heart was glad. He took the ephod and the household gods and the carved image and went along with the people. He didn't hesitate. He switched employers on the spot, took the idols, joined the thieves, went along with the armed mob. So they turned and departed, putting the little ones and the livestock and the goods in front of them. Strategic retreat, putting the vulnerable in front, so if Micah pursued, he'd have to attack through women and children. When they had gone a distance from the home of Micah, the men who were in the houses near Micah's house were called out, and they overtook the people of Dan. Micah and his neighbors pursued, trying to get their gods back, and they shouted to the people of Dan, who turned around and said to Micah, "What is the matter with you, that you come with such a company? Mock innocence. What's your problem?" And he said, "You take my gods that I made in the priest, and go away, and what have I left? How then do you ask me, what is the matter with you?" Tragic irony. You took my gods that I made. If you made them, they are not gods. If they can be stolen, they are not gods. If they need you to defend them, they are not gods. And the people of Dan said to him, "Do not let your voice be heard among us, lest angry fellows fall upon you, and you lose your life with the lives of your household." A threat. "Shut up or we'll kill you and your family." Then the people of Dan went their way. And when Micah saw that they were too strong for him, he turned and went back to his home. Micah gave up. His gods were powerless. His priest was unfaithful. His idols were stolen, and he could do nothing about it. But they took what Micah had made, and the priest who belonged to him, and they came to Laish, to a people quiet and unsuspecting, and struck them with the edge of the sword and burned the city with fire. Massacre. They attacked a peaceful city, killed the inhabitants, burned it down, and there was no deliverer because it was far from Sidon, and they had no dealings with anyone. No one came to help. No one knew. No one cared. Then they rebuilt the city and lived in it. And they named the city Dan, after the name of Dan their ancestor, who was born to Israel. But the name of the city was Laish at the first. Renaming, rebranding, covering the crime with a new identity. And the people of Dan set up the carved image for themselves. And Jonathan the son of Gershom, son of Moses, was priest to the tribe of the Danites until the day of the captivity of the land. A shocking detail. The Levite was Jonathan, the grandson of Moses. Moses, the great lawgiver, who received the 10 Commandments, who destroyed the golden calf. His own grandson was serving idols, leading an entire tribe into apostasy. So they set up Micah's carved image that he made, as long as the house of God was at Shiloh. The contrast. While the true house of God was at Shiloh, the tabernacle, the ark, the proper priesthood, Dan had their stolen idols, served by Moses' grandson, in a city they had taken through violence. The Levite's concubine and the horror at Gibeah. In those days, when there was no king in Israel, a certain Levite was sojourning in the remote parts of the hill country of Ephraim, who took to himself a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah. Another Levite, another story, this one even darker. And his concubine was unfaithful to him, and she went away from him to her father's house at Bethlehem in Judah, and was there some 4 months. She left him, returned to her father's house. The text says she was unfaithful, whether through adultery or simply by leaving, we don't know. Then her husband arose and went after her, to speak kindly to her and bring her back. He had with him his servant and a couple of donkeys. Reconciliation. He went to bring her back, not with anger, but to speak kindly to her. And he came to her father's house, and when the girl's father saw him, he came with joy to meet him. And his father-in-law, the girl's father, made him stay, and he remained with him 3 days. So they ate and drank and spent the night there. Hospitality. The father welcomed him. 3 days of eating and drinking together. And on the 4th day they arose early in the morning, and he prepared to go. But the girl's father said to his son-in-law, "Strengthen your heart with a morsel of bread, and after that you may go."